Welcome to the Gravel Lot, the place where bikes are for everyone.
The Gravel Lot podcast is presented by Be Free Ride Bikes Apparel, providing a fully customized cycling apparel experience to provide you and your team the attention to detail and personal touch that you deserve.
And also brought to you by Grimpour Brothers Coffee, offering handmade coffee roasted weekly in small batches to give you the finest quality coffee to start your day. Choose their subscription service and earn your free bag of coffee today.
And by Hand Up Gloves. Great gear, better times. Providing a wide range of apparel for bikes, snow sports, and golf in multiple designs and fits to let your personality shine.
Our goal with the Gravel Lot is to inspire cyclists of all stripes to ride bikes, share their story, and have fun. We love all bikes and anyone who wants to ride them. So no matter where you sit on the spectrum of bikes, we'll always have a place for you in the Gravel Lot.
And now, the hosts of TGL, John Woolry and Doug McClintock.
Welcome back. Week 2. This week is starting off a little bit differently. Doug and I are a little bit more ramped up than normal. We had some technical issues running into technical and some timing issues. But Welcome back to the
live,
Gravel
John.
Lot.
John,
Yes,
it's live.
This
It's
is live. Yes, this is live. So welcome back to the Gravel Lot. I'm John. That's Doug. And we are so glad that you guys found us and that you came back after the first week. Whether you guys are existing Pebbles or this is your first time listening, thank you for sharing your time with us, and we hope that you enjoy this as much as we enjoy making it. Head to thegravellot.com. This week we added a Patreon page if you guys want to become recurring donors. We also have the tip jar if you guys just want to do a one-time donation. That would be amazing since we have now departed from the Wide Angle Podium Network. Make sure to follow, subscribe if you're on Twitch, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, like the page, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you guys are at. Just engage and be a part of it. Put your comments below because we are going to be harvesting them throughout this, and we're going to use that at the end for the AMA section for this week's guest. And continue to follow along each day during the week because we have all kinds of stuff this week. Pete released a new Beeline article talking about the struggle that is indoor training during the winter during a global pandemic. That's something that we can all truly relate to. And follow along on all the other social media networks as well. We are at the Gravel Lot. We are super easy to find.
Yeah. So, John, if you're feeling a little keyed up right now,
yes,
I just want you to do an old theater trick that we used to do. And just imagine everyone in the audience is at home naked.
What's to say?
Far more disturbing than imagining an audience in a theater naked, but now because people can actually be at home naked because we're live.
So question, what is to stop me from putting it into their heads that below this desk
you would never
that I
take
am not
that
the
risk.
Exact same way.
You would never take that risk. You're not that dude. You would never take that risk.
That is accurate.
Neither would I, and neither would I. So, John, we're in a different format, but I want to know how your ride this week has been. How's the ride been?
Rocky, I think.
Bumpy?
Yeah, it's bumpy because last Tuesday everything was awesome. We were super keyed up. The first live stream went amazing. Wednesday morning we released the first ever Girls Moving Mountains podcast, which was an amazing episode, under 30 minutes. You guys should go subscribe and follow them on all the social media platforms just like us. And then the wheels fell off. Wednesday about 11 o'clock. I don't know what else there is to say. This weekend doing the last part of last week and this week, and you and I were talking before recording, trying to get the workouts done. Even just getting on the bike for 30 minutes and just pedaling around Watopia was a challenge. So yes, there were miles pedaled and there were weights picked up and put down, but they're, I don't know. They were maybe just a distraction more than anything else.
That's okay. It's okay. You got to have those days, right? You got to have those weeks.
Yes. How was yours?
My ride has been basically the same, pretty much. I mean, like we could basically.
I think you might be more keyed up than me, actually.
Plus, I've been moving heavy things, but that's for work, and it's wrecking me, and I got to do it for like the next, I don't know how many days. So that's always exciting. Whenever you got to pick up heavy things, then there's like a whole day of recuperation. I basically wanted to sleep under my desk today, but I refrained from that. So as John said, make sure you put your comments in here. We will get them in wherever we need, and hopefully with the AMA. But with that, I want to bring someone into the conversation that we are very, very excited to have back.
Yes.
Obviously, we are very lucky that we have had the ability to meet and engage with our good friend Amanda. She's coming to us from our awesome location in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And we are so glad to have her as our second guest on the show. And I think this is your third time back, which is pretty awesome. Albuquerque, New Mexico. She has already told us all about how she found bikes in her life and her shattered leg and retirement and so many different things. We feel like we've been along the Amanda Batty ride for a while and getting to go through all this, but we're excited to have her back to talk about recent topics and things that are going on. So without any further ado, former pro athlete, bike seller, marketing consultant, and semi-professional smartass, Amanda Batty. Welcome back to the Gravel Lot.
Hey guys, how are you?
We are well.
We are doing, yes, I think all three of us are keyed up because there was traffic, there was getting out of work, there was technical things. So I think each one of us in our own way is Oh, and you're drinking a Monster.
I
You're just
am.
adding even more fuel to the fire. Yes, I love it. So,
Hey, I have shit to do after this, okay?
I told John, and I'll tell you, and the Pebbles heard it, but you didn't get to. I use an old theater trick and just imagine everyone at home watching this is naked, and then we'll all be calm. That's like an old theater trick. That's how it's supposed to be.
Okay,
that's the perfect response. Yeah, your confused face is the perfect response.
That's what they tell you in theater. They're like, if you're nervous, just imagine the entire audience is naked, right? It takes away.
I thought it was underwear.
Nerves, right?
I thought it was imagine them in their underwear.
No.
All I can see is balls, guys. That's all I can see right now. Like I have a very
frightening. It's very frightening. So we're not going to think about that part of it anymore.
No.
That seems like a thing that we don't need to think about. But at any rate, we're stoked to have you back. It's good to catch up. And you've been up to a ton of stuff since we've talked last. You've gone through some different career changes and all that stuff. But I want to touch base because we haven't had a chance to even really catch up today. How's Mark? How's our dude?
Your boy's good. He's good. He's doing really well. He's actually at work right now. But so I've got the house to myself. Woohoo! No, he's really good. That's
been a big change in Amanda's life over the past year.
Yeah, we moved in together. It's like a thing.
Yeah, he was new when we had you on for the second time when we were talking mostly about Frankenfoot leg, and that was like the thing you were looking forward to. But and for anyone that's following you, you've done a lot of posts on Instagram, and you've talked a lot about how he has come into your life and brought you a lot of good perspective and challenged you in a lot of really good ways. So I think that's a great place to start in terms of where you were then versus kind of who you are and where you are now. So I guess just the broad question is how do you think the relationship with Mark has changed where you are today? Yeah, that's a bit. We're just gonna start real broad today.
All right, let's do it. No, I think for me, wow. To be in a relationship where you both have shit going on, where you're both, and for lack of a better word, where you're both adults, and you're both busy adults, and then you kind of get into this, it's new, it's fresh, it's fun, and then there's a fucking plague. There's a certain, I mean, like, we're both intense people. Like, he's intense in a much more patient, sane way. And I'm kind of the other end of the spectrum, which it works really well because I think it takes an equal mix of sort of opposites for a relationship to work really well, just because people need you. The best partnerships are where the other people or the other person, their strengths make up for your weaknesses. And he has a lot of strengths. We'll just say that. He has a lot of strengths. But I think that in a pandemic, particularly as everybody else has found out this year, it sort of compounds everything. And so whether it began in January or February for some people of this year, and they were just like, oh shit, what am I going to do now? Mark and I moved in together last September, so a year and a half ago. And it was cool. It was great. Like, winter was awesome. We were kind of like feeling it out. When you first move in with someone and you're doing this whole thing and you figure out your routine, it makes things really interesting. And as I'm sure we'll talk more about today, life has been really crazy. I was laid off last spring and we moved in together, and then I got another job, and I don't know where to start with that one, just because shit got crazy. But he's good. We're good. And it's weird to have someone who is so much the opposite, who can say, okay, you need some support. Tell me what you need. And that's it. That's it. Like, you sit there and you're like, this is what I need today. This is what I need from you. And it's fucking weird. It's fucking weird to sit there and ask someone for exactly what you need and give them what they're asking for. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does, because I think that when we're in this time where everything has changed emotionally for all of us, and we're all it magnifies anything, and it's going to put it under a microscope, and it's going to, like you said, compress feelings and emotions, good, positive, bad, whatever they may be. You're going to go through those pieces of it. And I think, and I'm like super scared for all of my friends who are like alone or single, and I keep reaching out to them, try to like be like, hey, how's it going, how you doing, or going through some relationship stuff during this, because I can't imagine what my life would be like going through this if I didn't have like my support group and had be very comfortable in that space, because life is still going to throw tumultuous stuff, and not just the pandemic, right? You went through
everything else,
right?
Yeah, everything else. It's life,
yeah.
But like it's life in a bubble, but not in a bubble, but like super hyper compressed. And so you have all this shit, and then you have a plague, and then you have civil unrest, and then you have like political insanity. But like, you still got to go to work. You still got to like make money. You still got to, it's life, but worse.
So let me ask this. I was talking with, and this is one of the few times that I have to define, like, to my Amanda.
Yeah.
Be very clear. Be very clear.
Yeah.
Today,
Somebody that you obviously, other than a name, you guys share quite a bit, but we were talking, in kind of getting ready for this episode about getting ready for the pandemic without realizing you were getting ready for it. And she went through 7 months, basically 6 months of being on the couch, and then like another month of being like really, really immobile, with her broken leg. And she said that she felt like she was ready for this because she already kind of went through it, and she was annoyed that she had to go through it again, but also felt uniquely qualified to deal with a lot of the constriction. So she's been able to be uniquely focused on all of the other things that you're talking about. And I'm wondering if you feel some of that as well going through Frankenfoot leg.
Oh, do I think that Frankenfoot leg was kind of like Armageddon boot camp?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like
preseason.
Oh yeah. Preseason, like apocalypse. It was,
they're like, we'll get the kind of good players out for a little while, get everybody off the bench, and make sure that you're really ready for this. Can we get you a contract?
Oh, I was mentally primed. I think. Well, and that's the funny thing about it. So during Frankenfoot leg, like I was habitually single, so I spent a lot of time on Tinder, and it was fucking terrifying, but. It's kind of the funny thing now is that on a daily basis, I look around, and the comparison is so stark, because I'm like, I was sort of like an amateur introvert when Frankenfoot leg first like started. And then social media sort of just like sent me into full on hermit mode. And then the plague happened. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I hate people. Like, I'm good. Like, we're good. I'm just going to live at home.
Shut it down.
Never
Shut it down.
We're good. I don't have to wear pants. I don't have to put on a bra. Like,
no parties, no nothing. I don't have anywhere I have to be except for work.
And no guilt for not going to said parties.
Oh my God. Oh, and nobody fucking shames you if you don't want to go to a dinner. Nobody's like, oh, we missed you.
Total introvert high five to that.
There.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. But it's also like, there were times where I'm laying on the couch, injured, Frankenfoot leg, or I'm in the hospital, and it was crushingly lonely, because you feel like the rest of the world is moving on. You feel so isolated and you feel so alone. But when the rest of the world has stopped and you're just kind of like, just like cooking along, like, fuck you guys. Like, this is awesome. Like, no, it's not awesome. Like, and I'm serious.
Right.
People died.
Sure.
Yeah.
Super not cool.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many not awesome things about it. But from, in the beginning stages, before 250,000 Americans died, more than 250,000, there was definitely this whole, I've been working from home. Like, I know how to do this. Like, we've built this routine, and adding another person into the same household was definitely interesting. Or me adding into his household.
Whichever way, you blending the households together.
Yeah. We'll just call it blending. Was definitely interesting, just because he's also retired. So he's a retired fire captain. He retired the October before we met. So he's sort of trying to find his rhythm. I was trying to sort of find my rhythm. And then the plagues, the pandemic sort of found its rhythm. And now we're just like, no pants. Cool. It's
Well, I mean, you can't do that with most roommates, right? You can't just be like, if John and I were roommates, I think that there would be like a strict, hey, if you come out of your room, there's pants on in this house, John.
Don't lie. Don't lie. We
Def-
know there wouldn't be.
Define pants.
I mean, I guess we would have to do that if we were roommates.
Yeah. Right.
Let's hope that situation doesn't actually
Handoff cutoffs are a lot different on me than they are on you.
Not that much different at any rate. But when you get in that situation and you're trying to figure those things out, I think you learn a lot about yourself. So, if you could pull a lesson just one thing that you've learned about Amanda from this time, like, what do you think it would be that you feel that you've learned about yourself that you didn't know beforehand?
That I didn't know beforehand?
Yeah, because we all know plenty of stuff. Like, I know how I would behave in certain situations, but something that like you surprised you about what you discovered about yourself in that situation.
What's the technical term for, I have it right in the back of my mind, but what's the technical term for germophobia?
I don't know. Yeah, germaphobe. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah,
Howie Mandel. That's the technical term.
Yeah,
Howie Mandel.
the Howard Hughes.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever it is. That one. Agoraphobic? No, that's afraid of spiders.
That's out. Yeah, that's outside. That's open spaces.
Yeah. So I'm pretty much no.
We're awesome at this game, by the way. All three of us. We are awesome at this.
Yeah.
Whatever. You don't like germs. That's what you learned about.
I hate fucking germs. So it was kind of a joke about like sexual health, like STDs. In high school, I was an encyclopedia of like, you could get this. Like, stop putting your dick in hot tubs. Like, it was one of those things where like in high school and in college, I was like, no, condoms are really important. Like, you don't understand. Condoms are really fucking important. Like, you could get really sick. And like, everybody's like, oh, this is a charming facet of your terrible personality. But then it was like with COVID, so I started listening to this podcast. It's a virologist. She's amazing. She's fucking incredible, super intelligent. In December, I was on the trainer a lot. So I started listening to just like randomly to this virology podcast, and she's a double expert in virology and infectious diseases. And so I started listening to December, and everybody's like, oh, the Wuhan flu, they started, Eastern SARS. And then they were like, COVID, whatever. So I was like, okay, this sounds like a really interesting virus. And then by March, it was less interesting and more like, okay, it's in your lap. You need to know about this. And the things that I've learned are that germs are scary.
Yes.
But it's also, I'm kind of a terrible person when it comes to uncontrollable risk. I've also discovered that. So
that's an interesting one. Uncontrollable risk.
Yeah.
So like things that you can't address, right? You choose to hurl yourself down a mountain at stupid speeds. That's a thing that you controlled.
Yep.
Right.
Because it was all calculated risk. It was all a certain level of accepted risk that I had taken that I was aware of and willing to accept the potential consequences of, right? So when you're downhilling, when you're skiing, when you're doing anything, like even in business, when you're risking your own money, when you're risking other people's money, when you're sort of taking these heavy risks, you can't really make that decision or take those risks without acknowledging that, yes, the worst possible case, the worst case scenario is this could happen, that could spiral out of control, and my life will be ruined. And okay, I'm okay with that. But with a pandemic, it's also one of those things where, one, you don't see it coming, or else I would be a very wealthy person. Two, it's And I've compared it to airborne gonorrhea, which is a humorous way of me being like, this is kind of serious. You don't want this. But in a way, it's also, it is. Every person you meet could have gotten fucked over by the last person they got too close to the grocery store, by the, every person, I was working in a shop earlier this year in the spring. I had just gotten this job at a shop when the pandemic hit. Like I was working there for like 3 days before we were forced to shut down.
Oh, geez.
3 or 4 days. Yeah. I'd been to work for like 3 or 4 days at my new job. And then the pandemic was like, nope. So, but it was at a bike shop and I was on the sales floor, and I'm technically an at-risk person. And so for me, all of this calculated risk, even with Frankenfoot leg, even, with rehab and MRSA, those were sort of all of these consequences that I could control. But then how do you control a new variant of SARS? How do you control things that the smartest people in the world, they don't even know where it came from? How do you control the outcome when you are exposed every single day to thousands of people because your industry is seeing the biggest boom it's seen since 1974? You're even bigger than that, I think, at this point. How can you possibly minimize your window of acceptable risk? And that was, come to find out, I fucking hate it. I hate it. I hate everything about it.
I think it's interesting to approach it from that space, right? Someone who's taken so many risks that you've chosen to do. This is one that none of us can control other people's behavior, because their behavior can directly affect us. We can control our own behavior. We can stay locked in our houses. We can wear masks. We can wash our hands. We can do all those things, but you cannot control what other beings are doing.
And that's like I think the important thing to state, that somewhere in February, March, April, May, the narrative of always updating on the latest science, I think as a culture, we lost track of what science was and the fact that science is continually evolving. And I completely get that, because we were doing the same thing with COPD father-in-law, then him getting diagnosed with lung cancer and all that stuff, and like locking everything down. So it became this idea of, okay, I can't control what anyone else does, but this is how, in that same way that you're saying, this is how I can control what's going on in my world. And it basically means like I haven't seen any of my friends, and I haven't really interacted, and haven't dined in restaurants, and but it's like, okay, this is once in a lifetime. Hopefully we don't have to do this again, as long as the three of us are above ground. But do you feel like you have gotten a grasp on that a little bit more as we've gotten further into it, and some of that science has started to, because originally it was terrifying, thinking everything you touched, everything you walked through, recirculated air, like it was really scary until we started to get a little bit more science behind all of those pieces to say like, okay, this is still really bad, and people that are in the kind of Venn diagram of people that are going to be more affected by it need to be really, really careful. But we're starting to find channels or ruts that we can kind of commit to.
Don't do this at all.
Yeah,
you can do this somewhat.
Right. So then it becomes then that's like my wife and I have, like, everything that we've done has been like, okay, risk reward, like legitimate, like you're talking about business decisions and things like that, is everything that we have done, restaurants that we have gone to, places we've shopped at, all of these things end up being, is it worth what could happen? And walking in, like, I think I told this story last week, we walked into the mall and we made it 20 feet in and immediately turned around, and she was like, she had tears in her eyes before we even got out the door.
Yeah. Because
it was like, I can't do this. There's too much on the line. I just want to go shop and feel normal, and I can't lose my dad. Like, it's one of those things, but it immediately took her out of being in control. But then she was like, white knuckle right back into like, no, I'm putting myself in the driver's seat. So I guess as this thing has rolled forward, do you feel like, well, both with the pandemic and living with Mark, do you feel like you've gotten a little bit better about feeling like you are more in the driver's seat?
No. If if anything, I think I kind of laugh about how the end of the decade was my opportunity to learn to let the fuck go. Just let go. Stop trying. So I've talked about this a little bit, but like I had a super traumatic childhood. I have complex PTSD. So there are things that throughout my life and my coping mechanisms just so happen to align with socially acceptable controlling mechanisms. Like they look like, people say like, oh, it's an alpha personality, you're a leader, all of this bullshit about like how I tend to deal with my background. Everybody does. I tend to deal with my background in ways that would be unhealthy if viewed through the lens of like she has problems, but instead it's viewed through like this lens of social acceptability. And so my whole life it's been a constant battle of control. And when I first started speaking out about sexism, it dawned on me that I had no right to tell women what to do with their bodies. I had no control, even though their decisions absolutely affected me as an athlete and as a person, as a woman. It still wasn't my fucking right. Like I had no right. And that has sort of snowballed into this understanding that the same thing is happening now. That Frankenfootleg, that MRSA, that my feelings for Mark, that losing friends, to suicide, to really tragic circumstances, leaving my career in the opposite of the way that I had intended, leaving my other career, my long-term, PR career. It was basically the universe being like, bitch, you got issues. We're going to teach you how to let go. And that's kind of what I look at it now as, just because this is going to sound so rudimentary, but the only control that anybody has is the control over how we react. And like, it's cliche because it's true.
Yeah, that's what everyone says, right? Like cliches are there for a reason because they are proven time and time again.
And so like, as far as, feeling like I'm back in the driver's seat, the funniest thing about that is as soon as you let go of control, as soon as I let go of control and stopped trying to control the situation for the prepared resolutions that I had, like I would imagine, I still kind of do this sometimes, like I imagine, shut up, watch. I imagine like the worst.
I think it's worst singing at possible, good times. It's perfect.
Yeah, I'm just gonna put it on silent. The worst possible case, like worst case scenarios. This is what I do. I imagine what's gonna happen, and then I kind of just walk it backwards. Like, okay, if this is the worst thing, if this is the thing that I'm afraid of most, if this is the worst thing that could possibly happen, how am I gonna deal with that? And so I still do that to some extent, but at the same time, I'm like, and then shit can go entirely pear-shaped and I won't have a plan and we'll all be fucked and it'll be okay. Right. And like, cause like none of anything that has happened over the last 3 or 4 years did I ever have a plan for. Like,
no. And how could you? And, I think it's very interesting because our friendship really began 3 or 4 years ago. You on our show said, hey, I'm gonna leave racing, and we were like, wow, okay, that's a thing. And it was a different place. Now all of that stuff, and whether you have control over it or not, and whether the decade was giving you this message to like say, I'm going to take control from you, right, and I'm going to wrest this from you and force you to figure out how to deal with it. Like where you're at now, there are ways that we are all attempting to figure out how to process and deal with the spaces that we're in, right? You went through, you're working as an electrician for a while. You were at another bike job. You worked as an electrician for a while, but now I feel like you're finding a place where there's some sort of actual like rhythm for you that like as, and I'm not chatting with you every day. I follow you, on we reach out every once in a while and have messages back and forth, but I follow what you're up to, and there's a rhythm that you're finding in the space that you're working professionally at. And I want to know this, is it co-op or is it the coop? Because either way it works.
Okay, so I actually don't work. I'm unemployed. Technically, I'm still unemployed. I have been since July.
But you work.
I'm volunteering.
That's still work.
So it's I would classify it as effort. And it's sort of an interesting situation. I had the opportunity to put my skills to good use in a way that I couldn't inherently benefit from them, which is a weird way to put it. But so it was partly spite, and it's still kind of partly spite. But after I think, and everybody knows about this, after I involuntarily resigned from my last job because of illegal, like grossly illegal activity that was going on.
Bad thing.
Yeah, that's still kind of going on. It was a chance for me to say, okay, what am I doing? It was an existential crisis. Again, it was another one of Amanda Batty's existential crises. And I got involved with this shop that was essentially overrun with bikes, and they didn't know, they were in a hole. They didn't really know what to do. They didn't know how to do it. And Mark was there. Mark used to work there about a decade ago. He used to moonlight as a wrench there in between fire shifts. And so he walked in early this summer, and they were like, hey, maybe you can help us. And so when I left my other shop from this spring, I kind of just like puttered around for a week or two. And then I was like, you guys are fucking it up. Let me help you. But I mean, my classic, like, bulldoze everybody. And so it's kind of come to like a smoother spot where it's like, okay, Amanda, stop being an asshole. Like everybody, like maybe listen, like we'll come to, so we've worked out this sort of smoother way to benefit people while still helping the original mission of that business. So it is the coop. It used to be a co-op.
I love it.
It is the coop because it's kind of just like a bunch of bikes in one, it's a bike coop. So, and I love it. It's a great little spot. It's an awesome part of Albuquerque's history. It's officially the oldest shop in Albuquerque now, after another shop closed down, I think earlier this year or last year. They've been around since 1974. And the owner is this amazingly smart, incredible guy. And the employees, it's just this legacy. It's this legendary shop that if you've been to Albuquerque, if you've ridden bikes in New Mexico anytime in the last 50 years, like this shop. And it's such a kick-ass mix of really, really old stuff. I mean, and we're talking like legacy Campagnolo parts. And it's been such an education for me and so humbling that it's impossible to not keep going back. Does that make sense? Like it's a joy that it's not about me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
sure.
And it's interesting that you led by clarifying that you were still unemployed, but then you took 5 minutes or so to talk in increasing passion,
Glowing detail.
and about the detail of the shop, because I'm like going back to thinking about like, don't let your job define who you are, find your purpose, and then eventually you'll find a way to make money doing it. And purpose is obviously very, very tricky because Doug and I have a lot of these conversations with each other about like the gravel lot has made he and I better people because of talking to folks like you and hearing those stories and hearing other people discover their purpose, and in doing that, we've kind of found part of our purpose of being people that can filter those things through. And so it kind of leads me, do you feel like you've found kind of a place where it sounds really pedantic to say that you found your purpose, but do you feel like you're getting into a spot where if the money was there, I could do this for the rest of my life and feel like I'm really contributing to something that is going to make my life richer, but also make the world a better place?
I think money is a funny topic, especially right now.
Understatement.
Sure.
The money's never there.
Yeah. So maybe back that out. Are you feeling like the work you're doing is feeding Amanda?
There it is.
Absolutely. And I think that part of it is it was the bike giveaway, in 2018. It was leaving racing. It was struggling with all of these different jobs and fighting like that whole stigma of, the stereotype of like being the athlete that retires and then goes to a shop. And the first couple of tries, the first attempts that I made to sort of stay on the fringe of the bike world and not get involved, not be hands-on, sort of like hang out behind the scenes as I described wanting to do a few years ago. That's not what I'm supposed to do for whatever fucking reason. That's not what I'm supposed to do. And what we're doing there, I'm totally okay saying this. We're changing the bike world. We are single-handedly, as a shop, as a collective of 5 and 6 people, we are fucking shit up in a way that I think that the bike world will learn to embrace. But because of the pandemic, because of the increased traffic, because of the increased interest, and because of the lack of supply, we have had to get so fucking clever that everything that I spoke about in the spring about how American bike shops are not essential. We just aren't. We don't have that culture. 6 months later, America proved me wrong. And it was fucking awesome because America, like, bike shops are now essential. Absolutely. 100%. Bike shop employees after 2020, by September of 2020, bike shops were not essential in March. We absolutely were not.
No,
we were not crucial to transportation. We were not crucial infrastructure. By September, the US had turned me into a liar. And it is the coolest fucking thing because all of these people came out of the woodwork, and all of these bikes that had not seen daylight in decades. Also, they came out of the woodwork, and you see them rolling in the shop, and you see these people of all income levels. And it's not just $6,000 bikes anymore. It's not just $10,000 builds. You're piecing an old Huffy, you're piecing an old Schwinn, you're repainting a specialized frame from 85 so that you can put a Christmas bike together. And these are things that you don't want to walk. It's like we have a room there's a room at the shop called that I affectionately termed the jungle because there's just so much shit in there. And the first time I walked back and I was like, all right, what the fuck can we sell in here? Like, we need some fucking money. Like, somebody needs to make some fucking money. So like, I walk back and I'm like, what's that frame? What are we doing with that frame? And the owner was like, all right, psycho. Like, that frame's been there for like 10 years, crazy pants. And I'm like, get it down. I'm selling it. And he was like, what?
Who are you going to sell that to? Right.
He's like, who the fuck's going to buy that, asshole? And I was like, someone will watch. And it's like, there's like this ongoing, like, let me show you. And to everybody's surprise, including my own, it worked. It worked. And so there was this whole, okay, what's old is new again. We can't get bikes anyway.
Yeah, no one can.
Let's see what happens. Let's pull these frames down. And guys, we still have, I would estimate that we probably have 100 frames in that shop. Wow. Of all ages. I mean, some of them are viable. Some of them absolutely aren't. And that's kind of the crazy part is Yeah, like this is the long, you guys know me, long form answer, essay answer. It's fucking cool to take things that have been abandoned and lost and to give them to people who actually need them. People who can't afford a $6,000 bike, people who don't want a $6,000 fucking bike because they're riding around the university and it's going to get stolen anyway. People who want something special, something that is theirs, something that will get them to where they're going, but not at bike industry prices. They don't want fucking new shit. They don't give a shit if it's 26 inches or 27.5 or 20 inches. If it rolls, if the tires have air and the chain seems tight, and it's kind of like that atmosphere song. And every time I hear it, it just makes me laugh because that's what matters. And everything leading up to it, like me as an electrician, construction, refrigeration expert, like, okay, cool. Like now I can climb on the roof and fuck around with the refrigeration. Like awesome. But it's also like all of these things. And I wish that I could, like, I actually signed an NDA. So there are some things I can talk about and there's some things I can't talk about.
Sure. That's why we're open-ended enough.
But the series of events that has led me to what's happening right now is absolutely 1000% not a coincidence. And I'm here for it. I fucking love it. This is how it's supposed to be.
That's good because I think it is good to see you in this space because you're like the way you are approaching things right now is like a different way than we've seen you before. I think you have garnered all this experience of the past several years and you've had all these crazy things happen, but you said this before about how this industry is something that you can't just stay on the fringes of. And I find that interesting because it is part of you. It is part of how you've built yourself in some ways, and it's intrinsic. And I think all of us have things that we come back to. And you said that the coop is figuring out how to be essential, and y'all are figuring out how to do this in a way that nobody else is figuring it out. And maybe some other people are in different places. Please tell us what places those are. Pebbles, let us know. People who are doing it good in your area. But as we look at that, the industry is changing and has to change. And it's not just supply and demand. Can we get bikes? Can we get tubes? Which I still can't get. Like it's
I get them.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. If you get some 26 by 1.5 to 1.95, please let me know.
Where would you like me to ship them?
Oh, fantastic.
Like, no shit, I've got some.
Cool. We'll talk offline. Fantastic.
Some black market tube deal now.
Fantastic. Great. Anyone else, if you need anything, reach out. Amanda will get you what you need.
Comments below.
She's like the tube plug.
Well, no, and that's the funniest part. That's the funniest part of how it started, because you're right. It's not just a supply and demand thing anymore. It's not just the continued bullshit of let's sell some shit to some people.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
It's not just this capitalist crap of like, well, we got to sell something. It's actually like, what do people need? How the fuck can we get it? And who do we have to like beg, borrow, steal, bribe? Like, is assassination on the table? Like, are we do like?
No, definitely.
No, I'm just kidding. No, but like, it's one of those things.
Allegedly.
No, but
yes.
But it's interesting to watch the resourcefulness of the bike industry right now, because how I got involved was an e-bike question. I was standing in the shop working on one of my fucking bikes because Mark was there. And so like, nice tools, I'm in. I'll take over your shop. So like, I'm working on one of my bikes. I'm just like some guy's girlfriend, right? I'm just that guy's girlfriend in the back. And the phone rings and one of the guys there goes, I got an e-bike question. And I was like, do you want me to take it? Like laughing. I was like, I can take it. And he's like, do you want it? I was like, yeah, I'll fucking take it. So like pick up the phone and I'm just like, hey, what's up? And I'm just like talking to this guy, and everybody, like all the wrenches are kind of looking at me like, what the fuck just happened? And then someone else goes, all right, here's a question for you. Can you get me this? And I was like, yeah, I'll get it. So like shows up in a couple of days and everybody's like, okay, all right. So you might
It was like a dare every time. Like, can you pull this off? Can you figure out, do you know somebody?
Well, and the funniest part is sometimes like I was such an idiot. Like I was so illiterate as far as anything that happened prior to like 2005 as far as bikes go, like fucking illiterate. So some days I didn't know if they were screwing with me or if they actually needed this thing. Like, what the fuck is an Ashtabula crank? I'm pretty sure you guys made that up. That sounds made up.
Yeah, it sounds made up.
So like we're joking about this and I'm like, I'm pretty sure you guys are just, they wrote it on a Post-it note and they're like, find us this. And I was like, this isn't a thing. And then I Googled it and I was like, holy fuck, it's a thing. All right, I'll get it.
On Sheldon Brown, it's definitely a thing. It's on Sheldon Brown.
Yeah, it's there. So let's talk about this piece of the industry, not use it in the sense of because I could easily probably get more ramped up than either of you about. I've given up on subscribing to pretty much every magazine because I don't believe in the idea that $2,000 is an entry-level bike. I don't like the idea of promoting brands that are selling $5,000 Strider bikes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then over the last week, we've seen one of the major companies getting sued for millions of dollars because of false marketing claims of trying to push.
Try to sell me stuff.
Yes.
With false claims. It's
yes.
Not cool.
And don't try and sell folks on the idea of, and I've said this like probably hundreds of times now, 5% more this, 10% more that. Stop it. You're
marginal
talking to
gains.
Yeah, you're talking to people that are
marginal gains.
You're talking to people that are already down the rabbit hole. And if 2020 taught anybody anything, it's the fact that for the $400 to $800 bikes like our friend Medi sells with State Bikes, they are flying off of they cannot, like, they've completely redone their warehousing because those are the bikes that everybody wants. And I love what you said about what do people need, what do people want, not people that are already in the sport, because you're already talking to the converted there at that point, and you're talking about imaginary dream bikes and bikes on the poster on your wall and all of that stuff. But so how do we take kind of where we are and the learnings that you have had, and that there's a couple local shops here in Cincinnati that are doing something very similar and have had crazy years because they're finding ways to deliver and to get more people on bikes in whatever that is. Because like you said, people don't care. I could not tell you, my ass could not tell you 5% more compliant over last year's model. Like, I couldn't do it. Like, a Pro Tour rider might be able to, but that's a different human being altogether. So how do we translate the things that you guys are learning with the Coupe and bring them to a broader scale and start to tell a little bit of truth to power to the folks that be within the industry to say, please stop, please stop making everything more expensive and spending half of your budget on marketing because you guys, and I'm a marketing person. This is what I do. This is what pays my bills.
I don't want to
hear because you're seeing brands come in that aren't spending that money, that are crushing you on making an affordable bike that has the same spec. So how do we start to unravel? I think we have to put, like, anything over probably $1,500, we have to kind of put a pin in that and not talk about it within this specific conversation. But how do we get and how do we serve people that want to join the sport and want to be into the hobby, or whatever you want to call it, into this thing that we all love to do that makes us feel free and liberated, but not screw it up?
So I think one, the number doesn't matter. And that's what money is. That is ultimately what money is. It's just a fucking number because nobody has that much cash. The US isn't even solvent, okay? The US doesn't have that amount of money. We still owe China a lot of money. So when we're talking about money, it's just a fucking number. And everybody has a number that they have to start at. And so their number is a reflection of the value that they see that what two wheels are. So, and that number is relative to the income they're bringing in. So when you consider that a $500 bike to someone who is unemployed right now, they are putting all of their eggs in that basket. That is an immense amount of value as compared to the dentist who's buying a fourth $20,000 bike. Yeah. So when you have to do a comparative analysis of what that value is to that person and what it means to them. And then you have to go out of your way to actually do the right thing. You can't sell people bullshit. You can't sell people bullshit.
You can.
Oh, I mean,
you can, but it goes back to what you're saying about doing the right thing. Stop selling people.
You can sell people you can sell people bullshit. Absolutely. All day. I've done it for fucking years. But you cannot sell people bullshit and stay where we are right now. We are experiencing a massive influx. And the reason that the bike industry died in North America, and it died. It was fucking dead. Like year over year, you look at the returns, you look at our imports, you look at our exports, you look at our sales numbers, we fucking died. Okay. So, and like, I'll rap battle with whoever wants to go. Like, all right. But like, I don't rap. I'm not going to rap battle.
I want to see this now. We'll get a little Mad Lib track on here and see what happens.
But like, are you serious? I can't even come up with a word for like being afraid of germs. So let's like, okay.
That's like, for the AMA. We're going to do Amanda Batty rap battle.
But like, you can't sell people bullshit and then expect them to come back. And that's what I'm seeing on a daily basis. Like, so I'm going to come out and I'm going to call someone out hard. I'm not going to use their name. I'm probably going to call out multiple people tonight. However, the first person, so there used to be a guy at this shop who all of last year told people that everything they wanted was stuck in ships that were trapped at sea. And there were 40,000 people trapped at sea. And everybody at the shop is going to fucking get a kick out of what I'm about to say. But this motherfucker spent all of 2020 telling people that he couldn't get them what they wanted. Because all of these ships out at sea, right? All of these shipping containers that were just stuck in the fucking ocean,
like
which is
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Like Pirates of the Caribbean, but everybody has anchors and no engines. Okay.
Neat.
And so he's telling everybody this, and this has been the bike industry. And I say this, I tell this story because this has been the bike industry for the last 20 years in the US. We are so busy selling people on what we have that we're not listening to what they need because we're so fucking stuck on our own. Like, we're so stuck in this idea that we know what's best for people, that we know what people want, but we have no fucking clue.
So are we not asking the right questions?
We're not
asking the right people.
No, we don't even care. We're not asking questions. We just don't give a fuck. We're going to sell them what we want. We're going to make what we want. And like market research, who ever heard of it? Look at Trek. Look at Trek. Look at what I said 2 years ago. And you look at their bullshit. It's so obvious that they didn't do any market research whatsoever because they've alienated their massive purchasing audience with this helmet bullshit. They have pissed off every parent and they're one of the most trusted names in cycling. And they took this massive fucking risk over a shitty helmet. For what? Because they were so intent on jumping into the helmet game that they didn't do their market research. They didn't do their product research. They sure as shit didn't do their scientific research. And so for what? Why? So that you can sell someone another product so that you can remain competitive in a market that has already passed you by?
Okay, so here's the thing, and this is something that I love about you as a person, because you do this all the time. You see things that are wrong and you don't stop and just go, well, just let this wrong thing just pass me by. You don't. That's not the way you've ever been built as a human being. I'm sure is like 5-year-old Amanda did the exact same thing on the playground, was like, nope, not cool. Right?
Are you calling me a narc? Are you saying that I was a narc?
No,
that I was a little kindergarten narc?
No, you didn't necessarily.
I would say instigator instead of narc.
I would say that go tell the like chaperone at the playground. You were like, hold on, that wasn't cool. Did you stop doing that? And then you deck them. Like, that seems a little more like probably how you would have handled that.
Yeah, I was kind of a little John Wayne.
Right, I back that exactly.
Just
But when we see those situations, right, we're seeing this, right. If we're saying that the industry isn't hearing the right people or listening or doing these things, whether it's Trek in the wave cell situation, whether it's, for crying out loud, athletes shooting themselves directly in the mouth, the foot, the head, whatever, because they don't have the capability or the people around them to monitor and teach them things, whether it's customers walking into stores and causing horrible problems by being racist and sexist and bigoted and acting this way, right? You see these things and you want to do something about it. That's good. That's what we all should do. But how do we do this with a juggernaut, whether it's the political world or whether it's the bike world or the bike industry? How do we speak this truth to power but be effective? Because it's hard.
Well, everything's hard. Like doing laundry's hard. Like, have you tried getting groceries lately? Like, everything is hard. That's what being an adult is. And so it's kind of like self-discipline, right? It's a muscle. Like, the more you do it, the stronger you get. And there's no, like, and I hate to use this fucking slogan, but like, you just do it. You just say, and Mark and I are actually, like, I'm going to come out and say this, like, Mark and I are doing this as a couple where I'm just kind of like, just do it. Just pull the trigger. Like, just do it. Like, stop thinking about it. Stop. Like, one, you're going to fuck up. Embrace it. Like, just know that you're going to fuck up. Know that you're going to ruin it. Know that people are going to get upset at you. But also know that, like, you can apologize. You can fix the situation. You can do better next time. And, like, just do it. Just because I've fucked up. Like, I've hurt people. Like, it's a learning experience. And so you have to say, this is so bad, but instead of fearing being wrong or instead of fearing making a mistake about this thing, I'm going to take the risk, and I'm just going to say something like, no, you can't be an asshole. Like, no, that's not how you athlete. No, you can't make those claims because someone knows better. Like, I know better. And it's my job to actually, like, if you know better, you do better. And so as a person, that's the slogan. When you know better, you do better. And so you have to help other people know better. You have to talk about it, because if you just kind of hide, if you hide behind these things that are scary, nothing ever gets done. Nobody ever has these real conversations because they're so terrified of fucking up that we haven't embraced failure. Like, if you're a company and you fuck up, just be like, yo, we blew it.
Own it. Yeah.
Like, we fucked up. Like, here's what we're doing. This is how we fucked up. This is what we learned from it. And this is what we're moving. And this is me as someone in marketing, as someone in PR who has actually helped companies apologize.
Yeah.
Like, just own it. You have to, and it has to be real. It has to be real. And you have to say, we fucking blew it. We're really sorry. This is what we're doing to make up for it. This is what we learned. And this is how we're going to change going forward so that we don't make that mistake again. And it has to be real. It has to be an effort in growth.
So this is where this whole conversation, I think, gets really sticky, because there's two people in every one of those conversations. There's the Red Bull athlete that says or does the bad thing. And then there's the mob of people that attacks said Red Bull athlete for doing or saying a certain thing. In the middle, because this normally unfolds on some form of social media, there is no nuance. There's not what we're doing here, and having some sort of like broader conversation that we're taking a step back and taking emotion out of the mix and saying, look, this is what you did. This is why it was wrong. This is the steps forward. We're not canceling you, but you have to start back from square one. And like, perfect citation that hits very close to my world is Kyle Larson last year sat out the entire NASCAR season for one word that he said on iRacing right after the NASCAR shutdown. Awful word, should never be said, but he spent the entire year away. He had to go through a whole lot of sensitivity training. His career was penalized. Even though he's coming back this year, his car is pretty much blank because no one wants to take a chance on him, but he's starting back from square one, building forward. And giving somebody the space to screw up and come back, I think, is important. Now, the caveat to all of this is thinking about a company like you mentioned. When leadership actively does nothing and says nothing when challenged, what is anybody inside that company, inside the people that are purchasing from that company, that are purchasing for that company? This is where, like, the idea of four walls, and I'm sure that you dealt with it in PR firms and in marketing. I've dealt with it with in-house marketing and in-house creative and things like that. When you get inside those four walls and you get inside that little sphere, whether it's your specific brand or your specific retail space or whatever, all your competition, whatever that world is, you start to think like that world, and you don't acknowledge the things that are going on outside of that world. And right now, the outside world is penetrating the bike industry very aggressively. And you have people within it that are still saying, we need to make the lightest bike ever made, the most efficient bike where you need to add 2 kilograms to make it UCI legal. And people coming into what we're talking about are like, why are all of you arguing about this? Like, I just want a bike that I can ride with my kid. Or,
yeah.
So, like, is it, as Dan in the comments mentioned, like, do we need entirely new leadership, or how do we put pressure on that specific leadership, and marketing directors and product managers and engineers and things like that? Because innovation's never going to stop. Making the best race bike is never going to stop. But how do we transition away from making results in the tour what happens on a Wednesday night group ride with the 50+ crowd?
Yeah, nobody
because
cares.
it's asinine. It is absolutely
Nobody cares
asinine.
about that.
Nobody wants to ride those bikes other than the fact to say, I have this amazing $12,000 bike, but I hate riding it because it's uncomfortable.
Beep, beep. Nobody cares.
So Mark asked me to make this sticker for him after some fucker online piped up. I actually think it was on the Defund Bike Police post or something. It was a funny meme. And I was like, listen, motherfucker, like, nobody cares. Like, nobody gives a shit about your opinion. And I think that, one, that's an integral thing that leadership in the bike industry needs to understand right now. On an organizational level, on a foundational level, on a leadership level, people don't fucking care. Nobody gives a shit about the Tour de France except white dentists. Here's the problem with that. Do you want to know the problem with that? Do you want to know the problem with that? White dentists have grown 3% over the last decade in cycling. 3%. White people have made up 3% of the growth. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Black people have had 98%. The presence of Black people in cycling have had 98% growth in the last decade. 98%. Do you know how much fucking growth that is?
Crazy.
And Hispanics have about half that. They have 40%, 47%, give or take a few numbers. But you look at those numbers, and the problem right now, it's not apathy. It's lack of perspective, because the bike industry is so fucking insular. The real world isn't affecting the bike industry. The bike industry is part of the real world, and the people in the bike industry like to pretend that it isn't, because that's their quote unquote escape. One, nobody gives a fuck that it's your escape. Quite frankly, fuck your escape. You have a responsibility to understand that two wheels has and always will be political. And if you can't actively say, I cannot divorce these, I will not be able to ever divorce these, because the bicycle, if you can't actively say that, get the fuck off a bike. Go golf, man. Like, go fucking golf. Yeah. Like, stop riding. Like, because you have to acknowledge that the bicycle has been a tool of liberation. If you do not acknowledge the history of the bicycle itself and the fact that the Wright brothers owned a fucking bike shop.
Yep.
Like,
that's what they built before planes.
That's what they built before fucking planes. And so if you don't understand the history, if you can't understand the power of the Southern Manifesto, so like, slavery ended, right? Like, and you have all of this history, and you have to understand history in order to have a path forward. And so you have to understand the strength of bicycles, what bicycles did for women's lib, bicycles did, what bicycles continue to do. Look at World Bicycle Relief Fund. Look at what bikes continue to do. And you cannot say that the growth inside of bicycling, that the growth of Black people and of Hispanic people and of people of color inside of the bike industry, you cannot say that has nothing to do with the fact that Trek still sells cop bikes. You cannot, that they still make and sell cop bikes. Same with Kona. Like, Kona made cop bikes. They made this fucking bike that I built probably 10 of this year called the Shield. You cannot divorce the two because they are intrinsically connected. And that's the thing that the bike leadership doesn't understand, is that you have to understand that these things are all connected and that everybody has to answer for them, because nothing happens in a bubble. What Chloe Dygert said was not said in a bubble. The things that she likes on Twitter. And yeah, I'm going to call her by name because that's what adults do, because the leadership that talked to her, the team managers, the sponsors of this team, the fact that no adults said, all right, Chloe, you got a choice here. You have a contract. Everybody knows what that contract says. Like, let's be real. We're all fucking grown-ups. Everybody knows what Chloe's contract says. Everybody knows that there's a conduct stipulation inside of that contract. There always is. I was an athlete. I've written them. I've read them. I've had them. I've signed them.
And we're like, I don't like that part.
Listen, I've lost contracts because of that stipulation. So the fact that Chloe is still on a factory team, the fact that even after posting a fucking Maya Angelou quote on Instagram, it wasn't tone deaf, that was antagonistic, let's be honest.
Yeah.
The fact that no adult has sat her down and said, Chloe, that's not how this works. See, we know she's Injured. She's bored. There's shit going on that none of us know about. She's young. However, that is not an excuse. She is surrounded by leadership. She is surrounded by adults who are capable of seeing both her potential and her fallibility. And those are two things that they're going to have to deal with. And if they don't deal with those things, it's going to turn into a nightmare. And I don't think anybody wants to cancel her because she is a young, talented cyclist.
Absolutely.
Okay, so here's the other thing. 98% increase in growth in Black cyclists over the last decade. 47% increase in Hispanic cyclists. And yet Chloe Dygert's the one who has a motherfucking contract with SRAM. Riddle me that.
So I want to throw.
That's why people are upset.
Yeah,
understood.
You open the door to data, and I want to drop some more data on folks to really underscore. No, I've had this pulled up. It's in our show notes. It's something that has annoyed me ever since it first came across Doug and I's radar.
Is this Festivus? Is this the airing of grievances?
No, it's not.
It is for me.
This is
I'm just kidding.
Everything that I'm about to list is further underscoring the imbalance of the cycling world and why these decisions are happening and why a lot of folks need to take a hard look in the mirror and say, how am I contributing to this? Even if the stuff that happened in the Capitol last week is of no consequence to you, just the sheer fact that you're giving the oxygen, that you're not actively trying to smother something, that you're giving the oxygen by saying nothing, you're letting things happen. So, the Velo News reader is an affluent, highly educated professional, I can't even read, who is dedicated to cycling and spends heavily on the sport, demographics, and spending. The average Velo News reader earns over $211,000 as means household income.
Hold on. Raise your hand the last time you made $211,000 in any fiscal year.
Oh, give me a moment. I'm going to go downstairs so that I'm like raising my hand in my basement.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do. I was just going to like...
You guys have basements?
But John's in his basement.
I can't go any further down. Like, yeah, I'm in the basement because it's safer down here.
And that's the other thing before you continue with data. It's not just the imbalance itself. It's not the presence of imbalance because nothing is ever fair. What is such an affront is the imbalance of resources and the imbalance of investment. It's the imbalance of equity. People who have not earned what they're given on a regular basis versus the people who are regularly investing. Like, you look at Black women in this sport, you look at Hispanic men, You look at the demographics, you look at these people, you look at trans women, you look at the people who are giving back to the sport, who have shaped cycling, not the dentists. You look at the people who are shaping cycling, the product managers. You look at the women, you look, and you have to say, why is all of the power and why is all of the investment and why is all of the resources going somewhere else? Anyway, okay, keep going with this.
I wonder
Yes.
why.
I wanna hear this.
Because quite literally, it's this guy and that other guy who are people who look like us, who are at the top,
Right.
who are controlling those resources.
Well, and it's this speaking to, this is who we aspire. Like, this is who we aspire to court, because this is a media kit saying that, hey, sponsor, you should be engaged with us because we're selling a lifestyle that is something that's it is the doubling
It's the
down
epitome,
of
yeah.
of owning your own space and not giving a shit about somebody that is living paycheck to paycheck, that can't afford a car and a payment and insurance and. Okay, so let's continue, because it actually gets a little bit more wonky. So
you get more gross than your
This-
median income of
this-
a Velo News rider is
this-
over
this-
200K.
average reader spends $2,200 a year on cycling related travel. Not travel, but cycling related travel. I drive my bike to the trailhead. That's a lot of gas.
2,200 on travel.
Travel, cycling related
Perfect.
travel.
Okay,
cycling
carry on.
related travel.
Carry on.
Yes.
We're already absurd.
They spend $4,000 a year on gear and services.
That's
Not including hookers. Not including hookers.
Not
No,
touching
Anyway,
that
keep
one.
going.
you can deduct those. You can deduct those if
They're
you're.
all tax.
I feel like
deductible.
at this point, yeah, it is a tax deduction.
I was on a conference. I was at a conference.
Yeah, I was on a Zoom meeting. Doesn't count. They ride 8 hours a week, which I think this is another one for everybody on this call, but also in the chat, is when is the last time that you consistently rode 8 hours a week?
When I didn't have a job, like when I wasn't doing, like, yeah.
I will
no,
say
I
this.
still didn't do that.
If you have someplace to get, and
Yes,
you are riding a
yes.
bike, then maybe you do ride 8 hours a week. But that
But
might
I
be
would
the-
challenge you. You could probably count those people on one hand, Doug,
Well,
that
no,
read
I
Velo
mean-
News.
But yeah, they don't read
Yeah.
Velo News because their income doesn't get into that window.
Correct. And there's a whole bunch of engagement and participation pieces here that also further underscore this. And if anyone wants to see it, send us a note. I'm more than happy to share it with you. But the last one is the average VN reader owns 5 bicycles. That's one person who takes the essay or whatever, the quiz, and they're talking about their own queue of bikes, their own quiver of bikes. They own 5
They're on
bicycles.
fleets.
Yes, their own fleet. Yes. So their gravel bike, their road bike, their tri bike, or their time trial bike, or maybe their time trial and their tri
Look,
bike and their mountain bike and their trail bike.
I'm not gonna. I mean, full disclosure, like, don't come to my house and try to take Ellen and my stuff. But we got a lot of bikes. But we're like,
You're still 2 people.
we're still 2 people.
You don't own
but-
10 bikes.
What?
You don't own 10 bikes.
Yeah, we do. But they're bikes I've had since I was 15.
That's probably the
But
B part of this
not-
statement that's missing is
Full
what is
disclosure.
the value of said 5 bicycles? Is that buying 5 bicycles every year?
they're not.
Regardless, these numbers are insane and underscore, like, that's why I pulled it up while you were bringing that up about the complete imbalance of where the money is being spent on investment versus what's actually being produced. Because
Mater
it's
has joined the chat.
Is that Mater?
Oh,
Yeah. What's up, dog? I mean,
cat.
Does it work?
he won't. If I don't hold him, he won't shut up. So
Good job. We're glad to have him join us.
Anyway.
It's a mess. We have a massive issue, and no one's listening. And I think it's about everybody in this space, whoever you are. You don't have to be Amanda Batty, or you don't have to have a dumb podcast that you made up in your basement.
listen, the thing is,
call
is the whole thing. Yeah, you don't, because the whole thing, like, so a couple of years ago, until I started getting super aggro about it when I was on the couch, a couple of years ago, people would like tag me in to be their little fight dog. And they were like, but you're Amanda Batty, you have a voice. And my response to that is the only reason I have a voice is because I played by prison rules. I walked into the prison and I shanked the biggest motherfucker I could find. And then I just kept going. That's all it is. That's all it is. This is prison rules. And so the thing about power is nobody's gonna give you a voice. Nobody's gonna fucking walk up and be like, oh, hey, here's a platform. Like, would you like to be an influencer? Like, the only people that have a voice, one, are the people who deserve it the least, like Donald Trump, or those who go in and fucking take it. And so, and this not like take it like capital shenanigans.
Yeah. No, none of that.
No. This isn't, no, we're not subverting democracy here. It's like, slow down, speed racers. There's a distinct, social media has increased the democratization of access. And if you don't have power, it's easy enough to build a following of people who also feel powerless, which you have seen via Donald Trump, via Twitter, until they deplatformed him. They waited so long because the monetization, the worth of his bullshit was so valuable to them that they were willing to risk the entire country on it. And that's the problem with power, is that once you have it, I mean, psychological studies actually show that people with power actually become, as they become more powerful, they become less aware, less empathetically, like less emotionally intelligent of those they have power over. So you have to understand that as people get more powerful, whether it's in the bike industry or within politics, they actually hear the cries of people below them, or the people that are supposed to be their peers. They hear it less, they listen less, because their interests become more of a priority than the interests they originally got involved with. That's why people who say, oh, fix it from the inside, are generally just full of shit, because that's not actually a thing. The more influence they gain, the less they actually listen. And so go ahead.
So if that is true, and I agree with you, and we are trying to not let ourselves become that way, as all of us are speaking out and saying the things that we feel are important and bringing light to them, how do we make sure we don't fall into that trap as we build power to change these things?
Because it's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about any single person. It's not about any single entity. And the second that it becomes about someone's influence, someone's specific power, someone's name, that's why the whole like Trek, like CEO of Trek, like his stupid fucking book, like, dude, we see it, narcissism, sit down, like, just stop. And you guys don't have to agree with me, I get it, because it does hit a little close to home. But there are certain behaviors that act as a marker of whether or not someone actually is willing to give a fuck. Are they willing to hand their platform over? Do they say, you know what, today, don't listen to me. Today, you need to listen to this person. Today, put traffic towards this person, because you can tell. People's actions will tell you everything. Where are they putting their money? Where are they putting their time? Who are they actually giving their platform to? Who are they handing it over to and saying, you know what, I'm not an expert on this topic, go talk to them. You know what, I've had plenty of opportunity, probably most of it undeserved, so you should go hire this person who has been clearly shut out, who has incredibly valuable things to say, but nobody will listen to. And the reason that I know that is because people did that for me. And you look at, people did that for me. People took massive risks, and risks that I didn't necessarily earn, because I might have been right about a couple of things. And so the more that I see this, the more that I see, particularly with white people, because white people are so uncomfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah. It's a tough look in the mirror to say, like, Doug, you and I look like the problem. And who are we to have this platform where we're challenging said problem looking like what we do, just fully understanding that, like, there are so many advantages that we naturally have that we wouldn't have if XYZ was the case.
But if you take those advantages and you say, this is what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
These are the boundaries of what we're going to talk about today. And if you don't like it, you can bounce.
Right.
Because this is how it's going. Today,
Correct.
we are subverting white supremacy. Today, we are subverting the upside down bullshit inside of the bike industry. Today, we are, and it goes from there. And the funny thing is the great thing about power is it's a lot like control. The more you let go, the more you democratize, you spread it out,
Yeah.
the better it fucking gets. You would be shocked at the amount of, and it's funny because I like to call it it's the catch-22 of the influencer thing, right? Everybody wants to be an influencer. Everybody wants to get paid to influence people. Everybody wants to be popular and liked and followed. But the thing is if you don't give a fuck about that and all you care about is spreading out influence, you spread out power, give it away. Give it to that person. Give it to that person. Empower that person. Hand them that job. You know what? Who gives a shit if they don't deserve it? Donald Trump's the fucking president.
Yeah,
give him that job.
That at all.
Like if we're going to talk about undeserving people who are totally fucking not qualified,
Yes.
And that's the funny thing is nobody in the history of the world in the bike industry can now say, no, sorry, you don't have enough experience. Listen, fucker, there are people running the free world who have no business. Like you have completely demolished every reason for the rest of forever for not giving that black engineer a fucking job as product engineer. Like there's no fucking fathomable, and anybody from now until forever has no business saying you're not qualified enough. Because bro, do you know how many unqualified white dudes I have seen destroy everything at this point? And I'm like early 30s still. I'm not even old.
There are so many people out in the world that are just trying to figure it out day to day, thinking what am I doing today? I have no idea what I'm doing. And I think that there is liberation in admitting that to yourself of like, I'm dumb. I'm just trying to figure it out every day because every day I try and get a little bit better rather than feeling like I have everything figured out.
It's the power of being a beginner. You're a sponge, and it's okay. And that's the best part.
Yeah.
You can fuck up because you're a beginner.
Right. And you give yourself the freedom to screw up and give not necessarily a free pass, but like, okay, I learned something today. I got better today.
I made it better. I apologized.
Yep.
I moved on.
Exactly.
This is what I learned. And it goes back to that company thing.
Yes. And
it
goes back to you and control and this space. It comes back to where we started, which is the pandemic screwed everything up and messed everything up for everyone. But we've all learned stuff. We've learned that we have to give up our power and give it to the people who aren't heard. We have to do it with respect and dignity and own our own mistakes in our own space and be comfortable saying, I am a flawed, horrible person that has made mistakes in the past. I will continue to make mistakes in the future, but my job is to try to make less mistakes.
I really want to be better.
Well, and the thing is it's not about being perfect.
No,
it never is. It's about, that's all it is. And it's really interesting because Mark and I had this conversation at like 2 a.m. last night about.
We called him and we're like, hey, can you prep Amanda for the conversation?
Trust me, so much prep. And that sounded super dirty. That's not what I meant.
Whoa.
That is not what I meant.
That was not, that was,
well, like
we may have been cussing a lot, but this is not that sort of podcast. Okay.
No,
Jeez.
So this conversation, the part about people knowing what's best for other people, the bike industry claiming that they know what's best, right? We had this conversation about how when you take ownership and you say, this is what I know is best for me, or this is what I think might be best for me, and I'm going to chase this until I fail at it, we have to give everybody that opportunity. We have to give them the room to come back from it. And not just white people who fuck up. Like, not just white people who need forgiveness. Like, I'm done with that shit. I'm like we honestly, like, between us and the rest of the internet, we have had so much fucking room to fuck up and come back over and over and over again while we continue to criminalize and vilify people who make one or two mistakes. Like, no, across the board, everybody gets unlimited chance to fuck up except for white people. Like, you get 3 chance, maybe 2 strikes. Like, you get like 2 strikes.
Yeah, there's
after
like a
that,
limit.
like after that, fuck you. Like,
We'll have to get together and figure out what that limit is.
We'll have to get
We're gonna need a big island.
The board will have to gather. Well,
Right,
Australia works. They were a
They
penal
did it
colony
once.
to begin with.
Yeah, they did it once. Let's do it again.
Bye.
We're taking it back.
But
Okay.
you also have. So okay. I'll stop ranting now.
So,
go ahead.
And I think we're wrapping towards kind of heading towards the AMA. So for everybody watching this, start to send your questions for Amanda. But I wanted to kind of get back to like challenging folks that are listening to this, because not everybody is the instigator, the I'm not gonna say narc, because you called yourself that earlier, and I'm not gonna call you that.
Listen, I live with one.
But
okay?
but the
not a narc, a non-confrontational person.
That's my family.
Yeah.
And not everybody feels comfortable in those situations of saying, like, I had one, Doug and I were talking about this earlier today. I had one over the weekend where I was having a conversation and my brain caught on fire because of what somebody said. And it was like, you feel that and you feel your blood pressure go up. But if you are trained, or if you're predisposed to not wanting to feel combative in those moments, you want to back down and you want to let it go. And I want to give some people either the space, the freedom to actually have those conversations and understand that they're complicated, they're complex, and they are difficult, because they're going to make you, as the person calling that person out, feel really uncomfortable because you don't like telling somebody that they're doing something wrong. But in the end, you're trying to help them be a better person. And then it takes the other person actually hearing that and saying, okay, yes, I understand what you're saying. But for those people who aren't really comfortable just jumping in the moment, I kind of want to talk amongst the three of us, like what are some things and some tips that we can give people to feel like they have the freedom to say, look, what you said I disagree with, and this is why I think that you're wrong, and this is how I think you can actually reframe what you said to be better tomorrow. Because we do run this risk of, it's difficult. I went to design school for 5 years, and by the time that I graduated, I had been through so many critiques that there was no way that somebody was going to critique my work and I was going to take it personally and feel like I was being personally attacked. I know I am very gifted when it comes to having that luxury, that the normal way that things work is if somebody says something and somebody calls them out, you feel immediately attacked and you go into like trash panda syndrome, where you're like on the balls of your feet, ready to attack back, rather than actually hear with 2 ears and speak with one mouth. So I kind of want to, like, I guess maybe Doug, let's start like with you in terms of like what things have made you feel more comfortable having those difficult conversations? Because I know you've had some.
They're tough, right?
They suck. They're like, I get like cold sweat, like sweaty palms, because the one that I had over the weekend was with my dad. Yeah. And there's like no person in your world than your parents. When they say something, you're like, nope, I completely disagree, because we were talking about stuff that was happening at the Capitol.
I mean, those are tough, and I've had those conversations with my parents. I had a brief, like, Ellen's folks are awesome. They're of different political stripes. Both of them are very different on the spectrum of where they've come from and their perspectives, and not necessarily from me, but from each other. It's kind of fun because we always get into political conversations, and they're great. But I've had those moments where, like, I have to say something and be like, do you not understand this thing that is very hard for me to say to all of you? And I don't know. I feel like that you just have to take that step. When you take the step into that unknown, there's so much calm that actually comes from saying the thing that you believe in your heart, that you start to feel better about saying that thing. Like, you know, it's true. You know why you're hurt or upset or see this thing as wrong. And when you own that space, and it's a hard thing to do, but when you own that space, you are able to feel some sort of calm. And I don't know how else to explain it, but just by living in the space that is your truth, whatever it is, if you just take that first step and dip your toes into it, you can beat around the bush as much as you need. But by saying, hey, this is my line in the sand and this is why this hurt me, that's like, if you just do that, you will start to feel more calm from that space. It's hard. You just got to walk into it. I don't know, Amanda.
So it's actually been really interesting listening to you guys just now, because Mark is very non-confrontational and I am the exact opposite.
Right.
As everybody knows.
If you follow Amanda on social media, you would know Amanda is confrontational.
Yeah. So these are so it's a new relationship. And when we first met, like everybody does like the full, like, we just met, like, I'm super cool. I'm really laid back. Like, I'm not high maintenance. Like, I'm really not this obnoxious, demanding bitch. Like, I am straight up. I'm totally that person.
Space. It's good.
But like, it also, it has come with these realizations that for me, having this non-confrontational person in my life, like this incredibly avoidant, like pathologically will not confront people, to the, like, I like, sometimes you just want to like shake that person. But the thing is like, he's also, as far as de-escalation goes, I'm learning so much. But it's because even in my family growing up, like the whole trauma thing, like you have to confront people, but as an adult, that doesn't always work. And so particularly when you're in groups where you have to work with other people, like in a nonprofit situation, in a work situation, or even in an interpersonal situation where you're both trapped in the same house and you can't just go out and find another apartment. Like you have to figure out how to deal with that. And for me, the one, humor has been a massive, if you approach it in a, you know what, fuck you, and you just like start laughing, they're like, what? And you're like, no, fuck you. Here's why. I love you, but fuck off. It honestly, like that line, do you know how many times I've used that line and people are like, wait, why? You're laughing. You love me. Okay.
I'm listening.
And it starts this conversation off in a way that, as someone who battled her family members right up until she stopped talking to them, I have learned so much from the internet, and it acts more as a call in rather than a call out, because you're sort of enlisting them as an accomplice. Like, listen, motherfucker, you're stupid. I love you. Let's talk. And it's this conspiratorial tone. And as much as I fucking hate the word tone, like tone police, like, oh, I don't like your tone, like, fuck you. But it's this way of sort of looping these people in with kind of a side hug. And it's an alternative to telling them to fuck off and die. Yeah. And that's how I look at it. Like, this is preferable-ish to telling someone to fuck off and die. And so you have to say, listen, that's like the biggest horse shit I've ever fucking heard in my life. Like, white privilege doesn't exist, man. Like, where the fuck did you hear this? Yeah. Like, and you actively, and it's not dismissive, but it's this humorous absurdity. You actually introduce the laughter and the absurdity of that, and not of that person, but of the idea. Like, that's not a real thing, man. Like, that's you talking from a place of comfort. Like, that's you prioritizing your comfort over the actual existence of other people. And that's what white people do. That's why Karens exist. That's why the whole joke about Karen, or the whole joke about Gary, exists in the first place, is because we as white people have actively chosen to be accomplices with that bullshit, with the comfort of our fellow white people. Yeah. And so now at this point, it comes down to us being like, no, like, that's okay. Like, we're going to sit down and talk about this. And this is me refusing not only to entertain that bullshit, but this is me refusing to be your accomplice. Just like I would say, fuck you, if a friend was like, yo, I need you to drive me to the bank, I'm going to rob it. I'd be like, no, you're fucking insane. Like, sorry, bitch, I'm out. Like, I'm not a ride or die. I mean, not even if we can get snacks on the way. And that's like that's my hang up right there. It's like, if you tell me we can get snacks on the way, I'm pretty much down for anything.
John, write it down.
Yes.
Snacks.
But like
New Mexico, we're getting
snacks.
If you're like, get in, bitch. Like, I'm going to snacks. I'll be like, I won't ask. I'll like jump in the trunk. I'm in. Like, I'm in the trunk. We got snacks. It doesn't matter what happens next. But like, there are certain things, like, I'm not gonna go fucking rob a bank. Like, I'm not gonna sit in the car of someone else's racism as they do this, as they engage in this continued bullshit. Because one, that's like 10 to life. Two, it's something that has gone on for so long that you look at the problems in our industry and in the world at large, which we are a part of, that we continue to endorse. And so for me, this morning we hung the Trump sign in the window, or the no Trump sign in the shop window.
Right.
Okay? It's like, talk to the guys about it, explain where I was coming from as someone who actually was assaulted by a Trump mask wearer in a public store.
Oh yeah.
Horrible
story.
But it's one of those things where, for me, I will never ask someone else who comes into the shop, who comes into my home, who I love. I will never, ever, ever fucking ask them to go what I went through with that day. I will never ask them to live that experience. And I will never create a situation to where they are forced to live that experience, because it was so awful. And I think that that's the benefit of experience. And that's the benefit of being able to call people in and say, no, here's why we're doing this. And one of the guys brought up a good point. He's like, well, what if we just put that, like, they can do it elsewhere, they just can't do it here. And I was like, honestly, let's tell people that. But at the same time, like, it's kind of like being a smoker.
It's passive approval.
Like, it is. But like, you can't smoke in our shop.
Yeah. Like,
you can't smoke in my house. Like, go somewhere else and do it, man. Like, honestly, it's not that big of a deal, but it has to start somewhere. And it has to start with me saying, you know what, I honestly don't give a fuck why you're wearing it. The fact that you're wearing it at all, the fact that you're wearing it in public, the fact that you feel comfortable walking into this shop means that that's not okay. That's not okay for me to accept, because we are a massive group of white people. And if someone walks into the shop and says,
just a bad look,
which one of these people is a Trump supporter? Like, because if I were not white, that would be my first question, because I walk into a store and I'm like, which one of these people supports rapists?
Yeah.
Which one of those people, like, I actually will walk into a situation and I'm just like, okay, what are my odds here? Who's in this room? Because
and as a woman, you're doing that calculation.
If you're vulnerable,
that's a second.
Exactly. And so, like, if you are vulnerable at all, these are the moves that you make to protect yourself. And so if you're a person of color, and I can't speak for anybody of color, I can't speak for anybody with traumatic experiences, but for me, I know what I do. And I would never ask someone, because right now, after that whole scenario at Ace, I walk into a hardware store or a sporting goods store. I've gone to the store less and less and less, because I am worried, because it does scare me, and I'm totally okay saying, yes, that scares me, because the forced vigilance of trauma is not something I feel like people should have to worry about when they walk into a bike shop. I don't think that's a fair ask. And so I think that as the people with the power, it's on us to say, here's what we're doing. We're actively saying, nope, not going to happen. This space right here, this 350 square feet of space, is a MAGA Trump gear zone, like free zone. We're not doing that shit.
It's safe for everybody, and we're not gonna have it any other way.
We're not doing that. Like, and honestly, like, if someone wore like a Holocaust shirt in, if someone wore like a Jeffrey Dahmer is my hero shirt, I'd be like, maybe we don't celebrate serial killers. Get out.
It's definitely not what we celebrate.
And I think that's where working together as an actual coalition, a collective of people, if you're taking 350 square foot here, if you're adding another 500 square foot there, and then and you eventually start to get to a point where anyone that's watched Cesar Millan, you have a bad dog, you bring him to his dogs, and the pack sorts it out, and they figure out where they fall, and the pack doesn't put up with the nonsense. And as a pack, we collectively need to figure out our own ways of dealing with the nonsense. And you nailed one of them, because it really is, like we were talking earlier about passively saying it's fine to do it there, just not here. It's still giving a little bit of oxygen for that thing to be okay. You're still kind of making it okay, but it's just not here. But semantically, it's fine over there. Whereas collectively, like all of us need to find whatever way. I've done it before where there's companies that I don't support because of decisions that they've made from a corporate or an executive level, or as a business, things that they've donated to, things that they've actively worked against. It's a tough list to keep track of, but it's something that I feel this is something that I feel very passionate about, and it's one of the small ways that I can actually leave a dent in some of these companies. And they may not even make that company's radar, but it's something that I feel very strongly about, that if everybody starts to behave with their wallet, you don't necessarily always need to be the one that's having those really uncomfortable, confronting conversations.
I beg to differ. I think
there always comes a point.
I think it's time.
And with certain things that are going on in our country, in our world right now, yes, I think we all need to stand up for those things and stand up for our fellow human beings. And that's where you mentioned having the compassion, having the empathy to understand, look, I haven't walked in their shoes. Why don't you go talk to them before you say another word, before you tell me why they don't have this or why they don't have that or why they act this way or why they act that way. Shut up. Go talk to them about their life experience and learn a little bit more about where they've come from.
Or maybe don't go talk to them. Maybe listen to what I'm about. You know what I mean? Like, maybe sit that person down and be like, one, you don't have a right to actually ask that person to educate you. Two, you and I are going to have this conversation because I have done the work and I have actually listened to what they're saying, and I have a vested interest in actually telling you, in making sure that they're not burdened with further emotional labor. And I think that a lot of people pass that off as sort of silly, as sort of this like, oh, like, ooh, like emotional labor. No, because here's the deal. Let's say every time a person of color robs a convenience store or is pulled over for a drug offense, the news nonstop drags every person of color, of that shade, through the rigmarole. They put them on cameras, they put them on TVs, and they ask them to disavow this person. And you know what never happens to white people? White people are never pulled on CNN and been like, hey, would you please disavow the Oklahoma City bombing? You're white. Like, come
or
get
every mass shooter.
Every mass fucking shooter. And nobody. It's always like, oh, thoughts and prayers. Oh, he was a lone wolf. No, he was white. So where the fuck are all the white people being like, no,
that guy doesn't speak
for us, because nobody asks us to do that. But every time,
we don't have to qualify ourselves.
We don't have to qualify ourselves.
Power, and that's the problem.
That's the problem. So this is what I'm doing in 2021. I am actively calling my white people in, and I'm like, no. We're going to answer for this. We're going to answer for this right now. And I'm going to tell you, as a white woman, that one, fuck you. That's not cool. Two, fuck you too, because you said it was cool. And three, fuck you. Don't come in here and tell people that this is okay because, oh, he's not one of us. Don't not all men this. Don't not all white people this. No. Yes, all white people. We keep doing this. That's the problem. It's all white people.
This is like my mission too. I'm glad you're on my mission, is to call out every single white person that I'm friends with and be like, no, that was totally not freaking cool. Even with the shade of homophobia or a shade of racism or even anything that I sense. And I guarantee my sense is not as good as everyone else's. But I will do my damnedest, because I think this is the work that we have to do, white person to white person, right? This is the work that we have to do, because it's not my job to fix racism. It's white people's job to fix racism.
And it's the work that everybody has put in, brick by brick, law by law, piece by piece, to build. The wall's already built. The wall is up. It's already effective. And every single white person who has stayed quiet every single white person who hasn't been like, that's racist. Every single white person who has not spoken up at a family dinner, who refuses to have those difficult conversations, who says, oh, well, you know, refusing someone
That's
service
just
because
Uncle
of a
Larry.
shirt that's just Uncle Larry, or refusing someone a service because of a shirt they wear.
Right,
I don't agree with that.
No, I just
You know
like,
what?
I just thought I'd like immediately had an idea of what that dude looks like.
You know who I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
And every time we don't act, that's another brick in the wall
Yeah.
of passive acceptance, passive encouragement, passive sponsorship of that. And just like Chloe's sponsors, just like her team managers, her teammates, just like people haven't been like, listen, that's not cool. Like, I'm waiting for the first person on the Canyon SRAM team to come out and be like, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm out. I disavow this.
Yeah.
This is horse shit. Like, you guys are fucked. What the fuck is it? Like,
Yeah.
fix your face. Fix your face. Like, what is going on?
Honestly, though, it can't, like, we're to take a jab at like professional racing right now. Like, it can't be that much of a leap to leave that
You're
team
not
because like women's pro racing makes no money anyway
That's the thing.
because of so many other things that we're talking about here. And for anyone,
why are you still showing up? Why are you still buying into a system that doesn't give
Yes.
a fuck about you?
right, and that's where like and I'm sure that there are people either listening to this, watching the live stream, whatever, that are thinking like, well, they're talking about cultural issues. I thought we were like listening for bikes. Like it's all the same
I'm
thing.
talking about Pink Bike. This is me and Pink Bike.
But
This is
the
me
thing is
and
this is
every
all
fucking bike sponsor.
this is all the same thing though. It is unraveling all of those same things because they are all so core
word
and
is
endemic
complicit.
to the cycling industry of
Yes.
it is entitled
Yes.
white dudes running the show and not giving a shit what anyone else thinks or what anyone else's opinion is because they control all the strings and then they can control all the marketing to make everybody jump and stay like, I don't know what the metaphor is, like within the matrix, because like I need to go get to get from Cat 4 elite status to Cat 3 elite status. I need to get the new carbon wheels and the new
Cooperative.
Aero helmet
Cooperative
And-
complicity. It is cooperative complicity. And,
and
it's just
stay like anesthetized in that world of trying to get the next N+1 or the next
because
kit or the
people-
next tool or whatever it is, and
Yeah.
completely missing the entire spectrum of the rest of the world still looks at you as though you are a grown-ass man in spandex riding a kid's bike.
in the trees. You're literally in the forest in fucking spandex. Like, and you want to talk about like real life. You want to talk about escape. Like, buddy, I don't give a shit what you do in the forest, but like, don't harm the squirrels. Like, don't touch the moose. Just
Right.
like do your like. But it also comes down to personal acceptance of consequences. If you're going to take ownership of a situation such as dismantling white supremacy or destroying souls in the bike industry, like have some fucking pride and do it with a little bit of oomph. Like if you're going to do something, you have to understand like just because someone is willing to stand by doesn't mean there aren't consequences. It just means that they're not seeing the consequences right now. Like when I speak out against USA Cycling and I say what they're doing is wrong, their bullshit surrounding their fake DEI, their bullshit surrounding all of like their faux activism, their bullshit surrounding their membership fees. Yeah, you know what? I paid a fucking high price, but that price was way more like that high cost to me is absolutely fucking worth it because of everything we've gained. I bought that progress and it is awesome. And this is where we are. And anybody who isn't on that wagon, anybody who's like, you know what, I'm going to own the personal consequences. I am going to accept that maybe negative things will happen. They're not seeing the positive side. They're not seeing the other side of the coin. Okay, so bad shit might happen, but like, what about the good shit that happens? What about the outcomes?
What about the positive outcomes of talking about that stuff?
Yes, maybe not going to Worlds, maybe not being put on that team, maybe not getting that super special spandex Masters jersey is actually something fucking cool. Maybe there's something to be learned from that. Maybe there's a different opportunity, and maybe just maybe that working towards the dismantling of this bullshit structure is like what if it's an investment in all of us?
Well,
What if
yeah, and I think that's where I feel like all of this is going. That there's a lot of people that are going to have to make short-term loss decisions for long-term gains for themselves, for this community, for our entire culture. Whether we're talking about the bike industry, we're talking about politics, we're talking about your next door neighbors, and the conversations and arguments that happen around whatever political sign is in someone's front yard. Like, take a moment, take the loss in that moment and own the loss, learn from it, and try and make it better. But also, if you're on the winning team, you need, or it's hard to not think of this as like wins and losses. But if you're on the dark side, light side, if you're a Jedi, it's your job to actually help walk somebody that is kind of living in that dark side, in your opinion, like Doug, like you were saying, to walk them through why and help them understand, because you have investment in their emotional bank. Because Amanda, like you were saying, you can't send them to somebody that has no emotional investment to that person to say, look, let's sit down and talk to this person and just hear their story, because again, there's no investment in that person. Whereas if somebody is endemic to your life, I don't care how awful the things that come out of their mouth are, you're the one that's kind of in charge of helping them see why that's bad.
You're a party. You're an accomplice.
Yes.
You are committing a bank robbery. You're sitting in the fucking passenger seat,
right?
And you're not saying, "Hey, let's go get donuts instead." Like, bank robbing banks is not cool. Like,
donuts not bank robbery.
Donuts not bank.
Donuts greater than bank robbery.
But like, you have to call these people in. You have to say, okay, maybe think about the fact that you're going to go rob a bank right now. What is the long-term payoff? What is your return on this investment? You're going to prison because it's 2021 and everybody has facial recognition. The cops will be there overnight. They have little magic buttons. This isn't the wild, wild west, asshole. Let's go get donuts. Like, this is a bad idea. If you need money, I'll fucking sell underwear on the internet. It doesn't matter. Like, we'll get money. It's okay.
Wow.
But like, you have to like, that's what I'm saying. Like, we are responsible. Like, if someone came to me and they said, I'm going to rob a bank, I'd be like, how about we don't? Like, I'll sell my car. Fuck it. If I had 2 kidneys, I'd sell a kidney. Let's not rob a bank. But like, racism is the same way. We have the responsibility. If you love someone, like, good friends don't let friends be racist. How's that?
Yep.
It's true.
Can we make that a slogan?
We were just about to be like, hey, look, this has been exceptional. Would you like to wrap this up with something for the Pebbles?
Well, that's kind of what, like, I think this is, if there was a time to change the dynamic of how we've normally finished our podcast, I think this is a great one, because I am not going to ask you, Amanda or Doug, what your takeaway for this week's episode is, because I want everyone listening to this to do it themselves. Whether you share it with us, whether you tell it to your partner, whether you tell it to yourself, I don't personally care, because this is such an open-ended conversation, and you've heard what all 3 of us feel about it. And it's now up to you to figure out what your takeaway from this conversation is. So I'm not taking anything away from you, Amanda, but the one thing that I do want to take away is, let's go get donuts.
Don't rob a bank.
And donuts are better than bank robbery. Those are like my 2 primary takeaways right now. But so in wrapping all of this stuff up, I think there's so many learnings from your professional career, from your post-professional racing career, that people can apply to their lives. Even the folks that don't feel as fervently or as comfortable with confrontation as you are. And I think we talked about a lot of the different ways that it is up to everybody. And I think if what happened at our nation's capital underscores anything, it is the fact that being complicit in silence or passive approval
not acceptable
makes you party to it, and you see what that passive approval breeds. And for anybody that was uncomfortable with what happened within our democracy, you should really take a look at yourself. And if you're looking at that and comparing it to the protests that happened over the summer, you should also really look at yourself, because there's That's completely false equivalency, and that's a whole nother hour that all three of us could probably rant on. But
We're here
I challenge all of you listening to this to define your own takeaway from this conversation as it relates to the bike industry, as it relates to social justice, as it relates to your own morality, and really figure out, like, if you don't want to listen to the Gravel Lot anymore, that's cool. I'm fine with that.
And that's kind of the boundaries thing, is if you don't want to be part of it, like, that's cool, but I won't.
Right.
Like, that's where I'm at. Like, at every point, particularly, as it relates to bikes, there is a point where you have to drop in. You have to commit. You have to get started. And after last week, after this week, there's no longer an excuse for getting out of the car. Like, don't rob the bank. Just open the door and step out.
Yep.
Just step out.
Yep.
Take the people who want to leave with you and walk away from it. Like, help us dismantle it.
Yeah.
Like, we can do this. You can take the wheels off the car.
Yeah.
Like, you can do that. Like,
I'm good at that. I have a lot of experience wheels off cars. So,
well, and I think that's the additional piece to this is anybody that is questioning those things and doesn't know where to start, reach out.
Yeah.
Like,
happily, I will help you.
I don't want to, and I don't think anybody in your life wants to lose you as part of their community, as part of their family. I don't want to lose you as a listener because I value what you're bringing to our community. But if you're questioning that stuff and you really are struggling with it, like, I would love to talk about it, and I would love to disagree with you and figure out, like, what that commonality is and what that common ground is and where the things that aren't flexible are, and help you kind of understand those things. So,
plus, on our side, we have Yoda and Baby Yoda. So come over to the Jedi side where we have Yoda and Baby Yoda.
Right.
And it's also, like, for me, I come off as like, fuck you, get the fuck out. Like, I'm not going to have these conversations. I'm not going to tolerate that. There's a difference between committing to having these conversations with someone who's willing to learn and disavowing outright hatred and outright, like, the sea lining and the gaslighting.
Yep.
And I think that that's the line. Like, if you actually want to have a conversation about this, if you want to discuss how I came to this point in my life, if you want to discuss how what I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that the three of us are willing to do, like, we have to have these conversations because that's our job.
Mm-hmm.
The conversations that led to this point, the escalation of racism, the escalation of bullshit in the bike industry, those were conversations too. Those started as conversations. Those started as ideas. And if you and I can have an exchange of ideas and we can have a conversation about how we got here, maybe we can have a conversation about how we get away from here.
Exactly.
And I think that that's where it starts. And so I'm willing to have that conversation, regardless of how much of an asshole I might seem. Like, have that conversation with me. This is a call in. This is my call in to everybody. If you're listening to this, if you want to have that conversation, let's have that conversation, because I'm committed to having that conversation, even if I might seem like a real fucking dickbag. Like, let's have that conversation.
You're like, we're all here in the Gravel Lot. These are the conversations
It's
that
a-
we have in
But
the Gravel Lot.
it's a crunchy exterior with a very soft center.
Shh, don't tell anyone.
I know. I'm
You
like
just
off
forget
brand
yourself
right
every
now.
time you come on the show, you just can't help but do it.
Yeah.
And I love it. So I want to thank all the Pebbles for joining us, old, new. Thanks for all your support, especially as we're making this transition this year. So make sure you either hit up our Patreon or the tip jar. Let us continue to do this. Head on over to thegravellot.com. Become a donor through our Patreon, any of that sort of stuff. You can catch us on all our streaming different things. They are very helpful, and we really appreciate all of your support, especially in this weird time when we're all trying to figure out how things are new and different.
Yeah. So last opportunity for those watching in the chat, submit your questions. We have a couple already that are already in the queue. But as Doug was saying, in addition to your generous support, keeping these lights on in my basement and Doug's spare bedroom, we encourage you guys to slide on over to our other sponsors and show them some love and thank them for supporting their show.
This wardrobe that I am not wearing underneath this because I'm not riding a bicycle currently is brought to you this week by the great folks at Be Free Ride Bike Cycling Apparel. We are now into our third year with Adam, handling all of our gear for our team, and we are continually blown away by all the quality gear that they make, the turnaround on all of this stuff, and the attention to detail. So make sure to head on over to bfrbcycling.com and take a look at how they can help your whole team get outfitted for 2021 and beyond. I assume there are years beyond 2021.
I hope so. I mean, we're not starting off super awesome, but I'm hopeful that there is going to be a 22 or maybe more. And even though it is now 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, this week's episode of TGL is being powered by the caffeine from our good friend Dan and everybody over at Grimport Brothers Coffee. Follow the link in our show notes and head to grimportbrothers.com now and purchase the, we're still going to support the Whiting of Podium blends. Because we still believe in what they're doing, either the viewer mail or the Hello Cyclocross Friends Espresso. But above all else, choose the coffee that's right for you, because every single one of them contributes to something that is actually making the world better, in honor of everything that we've been talking about for the last 2 odd hours. But the coolest thing there is if you sign up for the coffee subscription service, you will earn a free bag of coffee just by doing that. And Dan's coffee is incredible. I got my Amanda 3 bags of it for her birthday, and it's like I'm rationing it out because I don't want to just like plow through it, even though I want to make like 4 cups of coffee a day and give myself a heart attack.
You have good coffee morning, and then you're like, okay, we can't touch this.
Weekends, Friday mornings and Saturday mornings, like Friday, it's the like you made it. And then she can go off to work and go into the office and have really good coffee. And then Saturday mornings is like, okay, that's the like the really you made it coffee.
You really made it.
You really made it through the week.
Also, a massive thanks to our friends at Hand Up Gloves, my awesome yellow hat that I stole from Ellen. Hand Up Gloves provides amazing gloves and apparel for bikes, snow sports, golf. I used their golf gloves this weekend in 35-degree weather playing chip and putt with my to-be in-laws. It was good. It was fun. So make sure you head on over to Hand Up Gloves and get some of their good stuff. Click the link in our show notes and use code Pebble $sign at checkout to save 10% on everything in their store.
So if we haven't made it clear yet, we love hearing from every one of you guys. So please be sure to subscribe to whatever platform you're viewing this on now, whether it's Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, like the page, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to all of those social feeds, and go to thegravelot.com, because as Doug stated, as we said in the beginning, we now have a Patreon account, so you guys can become true followers of the Gravelot and be true Pebbles, and support us directly. Or if you just want to leave a tip, there's a tip jar there as well. But more importantly than that, you can go find the Beeline articles. You can go find the Girls Moving Mountains podcast that has just been released and is going to be now bi-weekly with Jen Malik and Nikki Peterson, talking about all of the amazing things that is going on in the world of NICA. But there's so many things there that you can go be a part of now and just engage with, and there's plenty of content. So there's really no reason for you to go anywhere else anymore. So go live on thegravelot.com.
That sounds like a good place to hang out.
Yeah.
And we want to thank our good friend. I don't know. Never met the guy, but he made good music.
He's probably cool.
He's probably cool. He surfs.
Anybody that can make things that vibe that hard.
Yeah, exactly. So check out Waterboy. Go hit up his SoundCloud. Click link in the show notes. Give him some support for creating our awesome new music. Yeah. Amanda, do you have a few more to hang around for some AMA questions, or do you need to bounce? I know
I can do this. I can do this. We're good. I've had so much caffeine. Let's do this.
All right. I'm about to float over here. So what's great is, because this is a live stream and I've never had to do this actually on the live stream, I'm going to blank my camera, get up and go to the bathroom while Amanda starts answering questions. Live stream.
Okay.
All right. So first off, we have Asgel saying, I'd be interested in the response to the sign Amanda put in the shop window today. Was there a response, I guess, first off?
So in person, only one person mentioned it. And she quietly pulled me aside and just said, "Thank you." Um, it was very anticlimactic, is what I would call it. Online, I haven't checked Instagram yet today. Or Twitter. I'm sure that there's
Probably smart.
I'm sure it's going to be awesome. But as of last night, I mean, things were mostly positive, which I'm really surprised about. But I think that, yeah, I think the reaction thus far has been positive. That might change in about, an hour and a half when I check it. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
What about within the folks in the shop when you talk to them about it? I know you mentioned a little bit when we were talking earlier, but we kind of glossed over it a little bit.
I think they were hesitant at first just because everybody else is white and male. So for them, it's kind of, whoop, just dropped my phone. For them, it's partially confronting their privilege, even as we talk about it, because people are nervous. People are worried about what might happen. But I think that overwhelmingly people support it in the shop. The guys, after I kind of explained where I was coming from, and I was just like, for me, it's kind of one of those things that I would like to know if I walk into somewhere else. It would be really nice to know that. And I think that, once I explained it like that, they were like, yeah, we can see, because people walk in the shop and they see a bunch of us and they're like, they're all white bike people.
Yep.
Like, how many of them support Trump? So
Right.
I think that, as soon as I made that clear, and I was like, I think that if we can actually, like, this is our shop saying we disavow, like, as white people, we disavow those fuckers. So, like, you're good here. Trust us. You're good.
Well, it's been kind of a struggle to watch because I know you and I talked about it a little. There's a local shop by us that did the same thing, and obviously the commentary on social media was divided.
Mm-hmm.
We'll say that. We'll choose that word. But the thing is people aren't realizing that if Parler is getting deplatformed by AWS or being taken off of the App Store or the Google Play Store or Trump being removed from Twitter, that's not a violation of free speech. You guys saying that you're not going to serve somebody wearing a MAGA hat is not a violation of free speech.
Well,
it's simply this is my turf, and by coming in here, you need to. To me, I struggle with how it's any different than no shirt, no shoes, no service.
Correct. I said that last night. Yeah. I said that last night, and I said,
like, we said the same thing about masks earlier this year. Like, why are we battling about this? Like, people can do if you're not allowed in the local McDonald's unless you wear a tinfoil hat. Like, if you really want a quarter pounder, you're gonna wear a tinfoil hat.
It's qualifying behavior. You are setting a standard of acceptable behavior, and if you don't meet that standard, you don't get to play. Buy the ticket, take the ride. If you're unwilling to do that, there are so many bike shops who don't have the same rules that we have that will serve you, that will happily serve you, that will happily let you into their store without a mask. And honestly, that's not my problem. But in that 350 square feet, that is my problem.
Yep.
And I would really like it to not be my problem. Like, don't make it my problem, because then it's going to be your problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's because people can wear their racism on a hat now.
Exactly.
John, what else? what other good questions?
There was one that came up during, I forget what part of the show it was, but you made a couple comments that had Pete Hitzman calling out, asking if you have read Stoic philosophy or if your commentary on purpose, and he said you were channeling Epictetus, or was that all organic?
Nerd. Pete's a nerd.
I know, that is real nerdy.
I am too, but I'm not on that. Not on philosophy, but Stoic philosophy. I like it.
Yes. So I have read a lot of philosophy. I almost became a theology major at one point, because it is fascinating the way that people function, the way that different philosophies serve different management strategies, we'll call them, of life. They do fascinate me. I don't don't ascribe to a certain philosophy. And so the things that I think are often conflicting and deeply flawed. But it's kind of the philosophy of me. It's what I know. It's what I know works for me. And I don't know if it's going to work for anybody else. And it might've worked for, a philosopher, it might've worked for someone else a long time ago, but I don't know.
That
That was perfect.
He's a stoic.
He likes
Mater the stoic.
That was
that's where
perfectly
all the
timed.
books in the house came from. That's where all of the books, the philosophy books came from.
He's just reading philosophy.
So
that's what he does. He doesn't have a job.
Yeah. So perfectly in line with that. This is. I don't think it was necessarily meant to be a question, but it was one of the comments that showed up during the live stream when we were talking about sharing platforms and selfishly, this is where like Doug and I's heads are. It's where when Jen Malik and Nikki Peterson came to us asking if we could help them get a podcast off the ground, we're like, yeah, hell yeah, because that is like, what is the point of doing any of this unless you're gonna help others? But the question for you is, can you actually give up power? Like, not you, Amanda, but like you as the ethereal you.
Yeah, I think you can. But so you can give up power. You can concede power. I think that you can grant someone power, but you cannot empower people. You can give people the tools they need to take power, but at the end of the day, you can give people a platform, but you can't necessarily give them power. Does that make sense? You can give them the option to take power, but power does not. That's what's funny about. That's what's funny about sort of the political spectrum. God damn it, Kat. He disagrees with me all the time, and it's just
he is quite vocal.
He's very oppositional. No, but you can grant someone your position. You can give them a position. You can give them everything. It's kind of, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yeah. My dad always used to say, like, you can cut the hole, you can build the door, you can open the door, but it's up to that person to actually like walk through it. And that's why I coach. That's why I want to, I want to do, Zoom mechanical clinics when I find an extra day in the week. Just because people who feel empowered, people who feel confident and they feel capable are often in the best position to actually take power. And so it comes from an organic place of you have to set the foundation, because if it doesn't matter if you create positions in the bike industry for women or people of color or, women, trans, femme, it does not matter if you create those positions if you have not created the structure for which people feel comfortable taking those positions and being safe or feeling fulfilled or doing a good job. Because it's just like, you can hire as many Black people as you want, but unless you change that corporate culture,
Correct.
unless you make your company welcoming to Black people and brown people and people who are not white and male and cisgender and, heterosexual presenting, unless you actively take those steps to create a sense of empowerment, it's nothing. It's lip service. And that's the thing about you can give power, you can create opportunity, but unless you create the conditions that enable and empower power.
Yeah. There's a weird fine line that I think a lot of people are starting to realize exists between trying to empower and straight up tokenizing.
Yeah.
And if
10 years ago, I think 10, 15 years ago, I would think that people were like, no, we have a Black person on our board of directors. Obviously we're a diverse.
Yeah, that's what I was.
But I think people have learned that isn't the same thing.
Yeah.
And I think that we have to continue to push that narrative forward, because that is not the same thing.
But it's also right now, the problem isn't actually creating or granting power. The problem isn't a lack of people willing to step up.
Correct.
Right now, the problem is a lack of people willing to step back and down. And that's a differentiation I think is incredibly important, because right now you have multiple generations of people who are saying, oh no, I'm here to take power. I want power. Like right here, I'm ready. Here's my resume. I am ready and prepared. And you have a bunch of white people who are like, no, we don't think you're ready yet. And I'm sorry, but who the fuck handed you the crown? Like, one, that's not how this works. And I think that that's what I'm trying to do, is to say, here's a platform. Here's my platform. If you want it, take it. And I think that that's our job right now, as well as having these conversations with each other. It's also saying, okay, here's this, and I probably didn't earn it in the first place. Here, hey.
So it looks like the last one that we have here that is kind of relevant, and it actually makes sense to continue this piece of the conversation, is how do you keep you and your community safe when calling these folks in?
That's a harder one.
Yeah.
I did a mini thread on it last night on Twitter, because there's no such thing as safety. And I think that is, earlier in the conversation when we spoke about there being acceptable risks, that you have to acknowledge that there is going to be personal costs, some of it great. You also have to say, is this safe? Is this okay, worst case scenario? And I did this on Twitter. I wrote last night about how, okay, worst case scenario is they firebomb the store with me inside of it, or they blow up my house, or they find me at a gas station and shoot me in the head. Or, I mean, all of the things that could go really horribly wrong. They could kidnap me for whatever the fuck that's worth, and then torture me, because, I mean, it's not going to work, because I'm way more annoying than they could ever be. And it's like they're going to be paying you guys to take me back. But it's like there's also, you have to acknowledge that risk, and then say, you know what? I'm okay with that risk, because I have never walked across a bridge and been gassed by the U.S. Army. I haven't lost an eye because of a rubber bullet. I have never been told I'm not allowed to vote. I have, and you start to tick off this list of things that you have never been because of your privilege.
Yeah.
And I think that there are people like John Lewis. It's good trouble. What are you willing to risk for the freedom of other people? What are you willing to risk for the freedom of you? Because the freedom from white supremacy doesn't just benefit people of color. The freedom from white supremacy benefits everybody, because as I detailed in the caption of it, in the comments actually of a post on Instagram, freedom from white supremacy is actually freedom, because it doesn't give power to the next white guy who walks into the room. It doesn't give ownership or control over everybody to the next guy who walks into the room. And I think that that's what isn't worth giving up for that.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe that sounds like a step too far, but what have I got to lose? And I say that being a person who has already given up so much for so fucking little. Like, I risked my life on a weekly basis for the heroics of being the fastest woman on a bike. Like, nobody fucking cares. Here's the sticker again. Nobody cares. Like, nobody cares. And so I have done way fucking more. I've risked so much more for so much less. And why the fuck am I going to stop now? Yeah. Why on earth would I stop now? So how do I protect the safety of myself and those I care about? I don't. I trust in the people that I love to protect themselves, and I will do what I can to keep them safe. But at the same time, it is a risk. You have to risk loss in order to do things that matter. And if you're not doing that, is it really worth fighting for?
It's
Yeah.
certainly.
I don't know where to go from that.
No,
Like, I don't,
all of
I'm
it
with
is.
you.
It's such an incredibly tough question because there's a couple facets to it. There is the a good friend of mine adopted two brothers who are they're people of color, and she and her husband are folks who grew up middle class, and they've kind of lived that white like American, this is your American life type thing, and watching her navigate this new life with these two little boys while constantly trying to underscore preparing them for a life that she doesn't truly understand is really, really fascinating and really challenging to kind of engage with at all the time, because there's so many things that they're just now starting, like preschool and kindergarten, and they're already experiencing things that she never had to experience, where they're work twice as hard to get half as far, and just those things that are endemic to society, not any outright racism or anything like that, but so many things that are just bred into our society as part of the oxygen. And safety is such a funny word when it comes to all of this stuff, because I love what you said of not being safe, because I think as a culture, we need to start looking beyond the time that we're all going to be here taking up space. Because if we're not, then what are we doing? We're racing towards the scene of a couple generations from now. We're going to have a massive crash and we're going to kill off everybody. Those are realistically the two options: is we can either start to come together and start to actually work together towards some sort of harmony, or we're just going to continue to get more divided and we have enough nukes to blow our planet off its orbit.
but I think the thing about safety and like coming together is, who am I to prioritize my safety over someone else?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But then by
That's
doing
what this
that,
boils down to.
but then by
No,
doing that, you're
because-
naturally prioritizing everybty.
right.
Yeah, which
I
that's the goal.
I
Yeah.
have safety because I am a cis presenting, a cishet presenting white male. I have safety. I can
Big safety net.
sacrifice my safety for someone
Yeah.
else's safety.
And
That's
that's the thing. That's ultimately what it comes down to, is if it comes down to, my safety has been prioritized my whole life. Hospitals, I've been uninsured the majority of my adult life because of what I went through at 18 and beyond, and being deemed uninsurable because of pre-existing conditions, because of lifestyle, whatever. But hospitals have saved my life so many times on the basis of my fucking skin color alone, that they care that they never would have given another person who wasn't a white female athlete. And how do you describe that? How do you quantify that? And so my safety, like, this is how I look at it. People have invested in my safety for the past 33 fucking years, like over invested in my safety, even as I was actively doing things to hurt myself. So why the fuck should they continue? Who am I to? I've run out of safety points. I have run out of safety points. And you know what? It's someone else's turn.
Yep.
It's time for me to say, okay, maybe this time we don't prioritize my safety. Maybe this time we prioritize someone else's safety. Maybe this time we prioritize someone who isn't Little Miss White will get care no matter which emergency room she goes to, because of what she looks like. And I think that's the line right there. If you want to talk about white privilege, it's about the fact that you have the option, that I have the option to prioritize my safety. Because the fact that, what about your safety? The fact that that's a question in the equation at all means that I have privileges that the majority of America does not. And
Correct.
that in itself speaks to the fact that maybe it's time for me to get a little risky for the things that actually fucking matter. And if that means getting some more death threats from assholes on the internet, like, so be it. Because at the end of the day, the people making these threats, the people who stormed the Capitol, that's a lot of Viagra.
Yeah,
that's a lot of Viagra. Let's just say that, because it takes a certain level for them to actually do anything. It's been 4 years of this rhetoric. It has taken them 4 years to do anything.
It doesn't mean that they're not dangerous, and doesn't mean that they
Yeah,
couldn't.
this is not me dismissing that.
No, and it isn't. But it is. I understand us taking risk in this space because we have the ability to take that risk.
Because and that's the thing, because we can.
Yeah.
Is why we should.
And that's exactly what I was just getting ready to say. Is I think the period to that statement is the fact that because the three of us and people that look like us have been able to have that choice for so long, naturally means that now it is our turn to bear that and to make those things right and to put ourselves in uncomfortable situations. And
it's not a position of martyrdom or
not at all.
Look in the mirror and understand that these are things you've been gifted. And we talked about it with John last week. And those are shitty things to admit, that maybe you don't have everything in your life because of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, maybe, and all of the rhetoric and all of that stuff.
Fucking good.
And maybe you're not that awesome.
Not that good.
Yeah, and that sucks. But the fact that for thousands of years, folks that look like us have had the privilege of kind of making up the rules as we go and holding other people accountable for our own failures and our own inadequacies and things like that, means that, to level the playing field, it is our turn. We have to be the ones to get in some of that good trouble.
And I think that that's inherently, white people aren't comfortable getting in trouble. They aren't comfortable being uncomfortable. And I say that because if you are one of those people who isn't comfortable in a state of discomfort, ask yourself why. Like, that's crucial right now. It's beyond time for us to say, why does this make me uncomfortable? Why am I so opposed to this idea? Why am I so opposed to being uncomfortable? Why am I going out of my way to make sure that my comfort and my existence is prioritized right here?
Yeah. Amanda, this has been absolutely awesome. This is exactly the medicine I needed. Pebbles, I hope all of you have enjoyed this time with Amanda. Amanda, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. Sincerely, thank you.
No, it is always such a good time. We always cut like deep into the thick of things. We always get deep into our emotions and our spaces where we need to be, but it's always good. It's rejuvenating. And I love John's challenge that he put out to all the Pebbles. Make sure you pull what you can and get back with us, whether it's on social media or just send us a note or just talk to your partner, as he said, about what you're pulling from this episode.
Talk to somebody, talk to anybody.
Yeah, whomever. So this has been awesome. We're so thankful we could join us at the beginning of here of season 4. We look forward to having you back later in the year and catching back up.
I look forward to it. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's been an honor, as always.
That is all for this week. So be sure to subscribe, follow, and engage, because as you know, decisions and trails are made by those who show up. So if we don't see you on the trails this week, we'll see you next time. Bye, John.
Bye, Doug.
Bye, Amanda.
Bye, guys.
Bye.